Bam, we're live. Started a minute early today. Huge guest coming on. Holy cow. Holy cow. Elliott Hulse. I had no idea. I don't even know how someone like this can exist on the planet and me not know about them for so long. It's weird. I should have known about him. I should have been following him. We should have been neighbors. We should have been best friends. Nutty what I uncovered in the last 48 hours. Anyone who wants to buy coffee, you should go to paperstreet.com. You should buy your coffee there. You should use the code Sevan and get 20% off between now and March 27th. Why do I say that? Because 20% off is a huge, significant discount. More importantly, they are a sponsor of the show. So when you buy coffee from them, you are supporting the show, and that is cool. Devesh, what's up? Heidi, good morning. I'm really pumped. If you buy coffee from there by March 27th, you'll be entered to win a Rogue Ohio bar custom. Whew. Maybe I should have eaten something. I'm like borderline jittery. Good morning, Bruce. Wow, look at you guys. Megan, good morning. Elliott Hulse. Thank you to barbelljobs.com for continuing your support. You guys rock. Barbelljobs.com. And of course,
that's the sound of a 360-degree barbell brush by Hybrid Athletics.
Does that freak anyone else out? Rich was saying that when Froning was on and he saw that, he's saying that it felt like fingers on a chalkboard. I don't get that at all. But I'm not Rich. Oh, you do love Elliott. You know Elliott. Crazy. This is crazy. I don't even know how to start this. Why didn't one of you guys tell me about this guy? It's your fault. You guys are actually great. So many great references in my DMs for people to have on the show. And I use so many of them. And you guys send me so many great links. And I repost them. And I use them on my live call-in show to show videos and whatnot. Been watching him for over 18 years. Wow. I'm going to call you on that, Olivia. Hold on a second. How old is YouTube? Did you know him before YouTube? YouTube is 17 years old. 2005, started by Steve Chen and Chad Hurley. And a guy, Jawad Kareem. Jawad. How's that for a name? Jawad. Good morning, Elliott.
Good morning.
Where do you start a show with Elliott? Elliott Hulse?
Yes, sir.
It's crazy. Do you start here and show him this picture that I saw the other day? This picture? Oh, wait. Where is it? Are you on a computer, Elliott?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then you'll see this. Oh, why can't the browser can't access your screen? Try capturing a different screen. Darn it. All right. It's a picture of Adam with his face between Eve's crotch, and the title is "It Wasn't an Apple."
Yeah, but it was sweet, and he couldn't turn it down.
It wasn't an apple. Elliott, I've never started a podcast like this, and excuse me. Do you know anything about me?
I'm sorry. No.
Oh, yeah. And you don't need to. You don't need to at all. I want to tell you a bizarre story. I know you're on the podcast to talk about you, or I brought you on the podcast to hopefully talk about you and more importantly, what you know. But there's a crazy story that's kind of long that you should know. I think you'll be find it fascinating. I was raised by my mom as a young man. My parents divorced when I was 3 years old. Both my parents were workaholics. My mom was the first woman to graduate from her night law school in Oakland, California at Armstrong Law School. And my dad was a Middle Eastern man who opened up a liquor and wine and cheese store. And my parents worked their ass off to raise my sister and I. But they divorced when I was at a young age. And my dad was in my life quite a bit, still took me on trips, took me to Tahoe, saw me on the weekends. But my mom primarily raised me with my sister. I was raised in a household where I was to avoid all discomfort. Sweating was bad. always choose the easiest path. You know, as I got older and became a young man, if I sweat, it bugged me. When we would do the presidential fitness exam, I thought I was clever because I would let the kids lap me and then come in with them on the 4th lap. So they all ran a mile, but I'd have a great time with only 3 laps run. I went away to college, and somewhere in there in my 20s, I resigned to, I was ready to die. I was done. I was not depressed or bummed, but I felt like I had done everything I needed to do on the planet. And I started contemplating ways of killing myself. Killing myself is a little harsh. I never even thought of it in those terms, but turning myself off because I didn't want to hurt the body, of course. And I was in a friend who I don't visit very often. I was in his bedroom, and everyone else was looking at the marijuana plants he was growing, and I wasn't interested in that. And I saw a book on his floor by a Russian mathematician named P.D. Ouspensky. He comes from that lineage with Krishnamurti and Madame Blavatsky and Gurdjieff, people that you might be familiar with. And they believed that when they had found Krishnamurti, they believed that he was the second coming of Christ. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that story, but Krishnamurti is a cool cat. You would like him. You know, everyone from Bruce Lee hung with him to Khalil Gibran, the poet, to, you know, anyone who's anyone. He was in Ojai, California, which is just north of Hollywood. So he had all those types coming up to see him. In that book that P.D. Ouspensky wrote, he says we're nothing but a bunch of I statements, and that if you deny the I statements, that you will see the final I and you can see what you are. So I thought, oh shit, that's what I need to do. Deny all my I statements. And then when I see the last I, I'll just turn it off and I'll die. I thought I was so clever. So I laid down and I shut the door in my place that my mom was renting me in college. Everything was taken care of. I was a pampered boy, brand new car, just all the coolest shit. And my mom loved me to death. And on the 5th day, and I'm trying to tell the story as fast as I can. On the 5th day, there were only 2 eyes left. And this is a very, very scary journey inward. Very scary. You have to be committed to dying. You won't even make it to this point. You have to be committed to dying. And on the last day, I was, imagine a circle, and and I was on one side of it, and on the other side was, this wall was going to come up, and I was going to see the 2 eyes were going to come together. When it started, there were thousands of eyes. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm horny, I have an itch, but you deny all of those. You lay perfectly still. You're like a man trapped in a room with a cobra, and if you take your eyes off it, that motherfucker's going to bite you. So that wall comes up, and that eye that I see on the other side is my mom. There was me and my mom, and that was all that was left. I can't explain it any other way than that. The 2 eyes fucking came together. A giant fucking bright light appeared to come out of my eyes. And just like you would be, if you were in pitch blackness, you wouldn't know where you were. I was in pitch light. And at that moment, I came out of my head. And I realized, oh, it wasn't that I was done with the world. It was that I had been trapped in my head. And I got out. Like, so I went from knowing everything, because in my little world I could know everything, to not knowing anything. Mm-hmm. Fucking egg that cracked into the cosmos. Holy shit. If you don't have the tools to stay in that spot, you could go batshit crazy. What are those tools? Discipline, meditation, fine-tune eating. And so I knew that the only way, and I don't know if I've ever told this story on the air. Only my closest cohort, maybe a couple of times, but only my closest cohorts have known this. So the really weird part's about to come. What's really trippy about this is because you came kind of from the opposite way. You were the fittest kid that got enlightened. I was the fattest kid that got enlightened. Sloppiest. And I wasn't really I was fat, but I wasn't like fat. And then so I was borderline going to go crazy, right? Because I didn't know what had happened, and I needed some semblance to rebuild my persona, because you can't walk around in the world like that. You need some tools. So I gave up everything I owned, everything, and I became a homeless man. And I didn't wear shoes. I gave up everything because I knew that was the only way to stay. Like, I couldn't manage objects anymore. I couldn't manage a big identity, and if I did, I would go crazy and I would become myself again. A new version, and I didn't want to. I wanted to stay in that spot. So while I worked on honing the skills of cultivating awareness to get control of my emotions, my intellect, so that I could be the observer instead of the dancer. Mm-hmm. I could watch the dance. one day I walked by a home after being homeless for a couple of years. I walked by a home for disabled adults, and I thought, oh, I should go in there and get a job. I went in there and got a job, and I did the interview barefoot and all that. And I started, and since I was homeless, I was making $7 an hour. Within months, I was rich. I had like $7,000 saved up. Fucking filthy rich. I still ate out of a dumpster. You know what I mean? And on one day, I saw that Apple Macintosh was going to release a G4 black clamshell notebook, or was it the G5, in a program called Final Cut Pro. And I hadn't used a computer in fucking 5 years. I didn't know shit about editing. But when it came out, I went to the student hall at UC Santa Barbara, and the day it came out, I bought that computer and that software. And then I also bought a shitty like 1977 Toyota Chinook, and I plugged it into the cigarette lighter, and I taught myself how to edit. This is like in 2001, 2, or 3. And this is where mine and your story gets really fucking weird. I started just making TV shows, movies, anything, commercials for all the local shops. I'm a fucking workaholic. My fucking parents are Armenian fucking immigrants, right? In 2006, I'm making a show for ESPN, and there's a guy, and I'm still living in the motorhome, but I'm directing, producing, commentating for ESPN, just doing what, like hustling. I'm fucking crazy. And there's a guy there, and he's telling me about these workouts he does, and I think he's a fucking liar. He's built like you. But I'm like, hey, this guy's beautiful and he's got an insane body. He doesn't have to lie about his workouts. He tells me he does this thing called CrossFit. I'm like, okay. Later on that summer, I see that he was telling the truth. It's summer of 2006. I start doing CrossFit. I contact Greg Glassman and Lauren Glassman. And at that time, as you know, being the fucking YouTube fucking OG that you are, websites didn't even want to put pictures or videos on their websites because it would slow down the website, right? Everyone was scared. Do you remember that? Oh, I don't know if I'm going to put this picture up, slow down the bandwidth. You remember that shit?
Yes.
So as I dig into your history, at the same time you were building the Elliott Hulse empire, I became the premier filmmaker for CrossFit. I was their only really media guy. It was Tony Budding, me. And I basically made, it was based, and then I eventually became the executive director of CrossFit Media. I was there from 300 to 15,000 gyms. I was Greg's right-hand man. I'm closer to Dave and Greg than probably any two people on the planet.
Wow.
But you used your video making skills. And so I'm a dirt twirling barefoot hippie making all these videos for CrossFit, like 90% of them in the early years, that hated the military, hated the police, all that. But I'm in that circle. I'm in that world.
Yeah.
And those dudes fucking turned me into a man.
Nice. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
And here I am at 49 years old, and I'm watching your fucking podcast yesterday with Mark Bell, just stealing all of Mark Bell's and that fucking beautiful God See Me. And I'm like, holy shit, I cannot fucking believe I'm about to meet this dude. I needed to meet this dude when I was 25. I needed you. I needed you so bad. I was so confused. Holy shit.
It's a pretty cool story. Yeah, it's amazing how putting a barbell in a young man's hand will turn him into a man.
I'd already been doing I went to Golds and I did lap pull downs and shit. I rode my bike. But so you, how did you, there's so much deeper shit for us to talk about. But how did you get the camera in your hand in 2007? It's so early. Did you do your editing? Can you tell me about just that superficial technological part first? How you and I'm assuming, did you use Final Cut Pro?
You keep talking about editing. There's no editing in my videos. My videos, if you really pay attention, it's just me talking, 0 cuts, and turn on the camera, turn off the camera. In
God,
fact,
so much pressure on you. It's all you
right now. In order to, I'm going to do some updates on them.
Uh-huh.
And from today's perspective, I can see that they're actually pretty bad. They're good because I'm charismatic and I had interesting things to talk about, so people engage. Plus, the barrier to entry and the expectations in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10 for YouTube videos was very low. So, you know, people were watching my videos. Today, they wouldn't. If I came out the way I was making videos back then today, they would turn me off immediately. In fact, my views have just plummeted because I haven't updated my editing. And so I think that those videos became very popular mainly because I'm good looking and charismatic.
Well, you know your
That was about
shit.
it.
To tell you the truth, I didn't even know who you were until about a week ago, which is fucking mind-boggling to me. But it's because I'm probably like you. I'm just focused on my shit. Like I'm a Labrador. Someone threw a ball over there and I'm chasing it. I don't see the car coming. I'm gonna get hit by a car. Oh
Yeah,
shit,
same.
someone's right. I told you I was 49. I just turned 50. Sorry. It's hard. That's a hard one. So what did you film with?
A flip cam. Do you remember those?
No.
So this was when phones still had buttons on them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there were no iPhones back in 2007 when I made my first YouTube video. In fact, my very first video is on a handheld DV where it had like the little tape. Remember,
Yeah, that's
like
what I used to use. Yes, sir.
these big VHSs, and then
Yeah.
they got smaller. So my
High
very
tech.
first videos are like on a small VHS. It wasn't even a disc in it. It was literally tape. So it was a tape. You were watching, when you watch those videos on my Strength Camp channel in 2007, you're watching a tape. Remember tapes? That's so funny. So it was done on a handheld camera. And then not too long after that, they came out with these flip cams, and they call them a flip cam because it was a small box. It looked like, I don't know how to describe it, like two cigarette boxes stacked on top of each other with a lens on it, and then you push a button and a USB would pop out. And so, do you remember those? Yeah. So anyway, they were like maybe $200, and they were just, you could put batteries in them if you're ever having to put, you know, AAA batteries in them. And I used that on a tripod, and that's how I became YouTube famous. Like I said, zero editing. I didn't even have intros. It was just turn it on. Somebody's got a question. I answered questions. That's how that was my content strategy. Was
the Yo Elliott series.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy. And you had no peers doing that.
Peers meaning like other YouTubers?
Like you did, like your buddy who was the professor at wherever, he wasn't making philosophy videos. Your wife wasn't making cooking videos. You were just like, shit, I see this thing YouTube. I know some shit about lifting weights. I'm going for it.
Well, I started a gym. In fact, it was out of the back of my van. I was training people in city parks before boot camps were a thing. And I remember learning about training.
What state was that in?
Florida, St. Petersburg, Florida. And so I had I was involved in strongman training. So I had a lot of odd objects like tires and sandbags and used equipment, a lot of, stuff I found in junkyards. And I threw it into the back of my 1987 van that my dad gave me. And I would go around to the city parks and I'd do workouts. And I knew that it was appealing. These were different than going to the gym. Like you said, you're doing pull downs and stuff. Well, we're out here pulling and pushing cars. So I wanted to get more members at my camp. And so I started filming those workouts so that they could show their friends and family, hey, look at what I'm doing. It's pretty cool. It's visually stimulating. And then they would, invite more people to come in. Little did I know, completely, just to be transparent, I didn't know YouTube to be something where you become famous. I didn't know it was a thing that was going to become worldwide and that it was going to be a big deal, and then I was going to have 1 million subscribers. I had no clue.
Were you the first guy to get to 1 million? Were you the first fitness guy to get to 1 million?
I think so. Wow. In fact, I think I was, because I was trailing behind the Hodge twins and they were huge at the time. And I crept up right behind them and blasted through a million in 2014. So I might have, wow, I got to put that on my resume. I think I actually was. So it was, but I started purely just to get members to come to my little warehouse gym that I opened up, not too long after that.
Crazy. And do you remember seeing, so if you started in 2007, do you remember seeing CrossFit like as the parallel? Did you ever see that, oh shit, I'm growing, they're growing, this is a whole nother, but yours is built on Elliott Hulse, and this was Greg Glassman had called it CrossFit. Did you see those two?
Yeah, I saw the parallels between what they were doing, what I was doing. In fact, I started strongman training, which became my brand, right? Because I went to a CrossFit seminar that was hosted at a gym not too far from me, a few cities away. But they brought in a speaker who was the Florida State chairman for the strongman, American Strongman. And so it was from that meeting that I created Strength Camp, and then I started strongman competitions myself. So myself and CrossFit have quite a history there. I never been a CrossFitter. I never joined a CrossFit gym, but we kind of came up at the same way, and I was inspired.
Yeah, definitely. It was we were siblings.
Yep. Yeah.
What year was that you went to that seminar?
I want to say like 2006, 2007.
Yeah. That was when in the early days, the seminar, it was so mom and pop back then. What they would do is they would have Saturdays. Sometimes they would have 3 days, but they would have Saturday, Sunday, and then Sunday morning they would have, like, if you wanted to come like at 7 a.m. super early, they'd have some expert, like a guy who just trained with dogs, or a guy who was the world's best karate guy, or the guy who was the world's best strongman guy. You know what I mean? Some expert. They would have like Louis Simmons come in, or John Hackelman, who Chuck Liddell's coach, for an hour. And was it one of those things? That was the strong guy. He came really early.
Yeah, it was. It must have been on a Sunday. Yeah, and he spoke for about an hour about what he was going to do, and then he took us out back and had us drag a giant tractor tire and carry kegs. He had beer kegs filled up with water and sand, and I died. I remember falling to the ground and my legs cramping up, and I could not walk for maybe 10 minutes, and I was in love in that moment. I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
How old were you? You must have been, let me guess, I was 34 in 2006. You're about 8 years younger than me. You were 26.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Right. Crazy. Elliott, how did your parents meet? Your mom and dad?
Are from Belize. I'm a first generation American. And so, as is with most immigrants when they come to the States, they went to Brooklyn. They stay in small communities where, they kind of all know each other from back home. And so I think my father's brother, my uncle, and my mother's aunt, so my great aunt, they linked up. They became a couple. So my dad and my mom knew each other by proxy, and so they started hanging out, got married, and had me.
They're both Belizean?
Correct.
But they didn't know each other in Belize?
No.
I've been to. I filmed a movie in Belize. It's a trippy place, man. My first thing was like, holy shit, the Tarzan movie is real. I could not fucking believe the natural environment there. People have told me Costa Rica is like that. I find it hard to believe that there's anywhere in the world like Belize. I mean, I'm sure there is. Have you been there?
Yeah, we went for the first time in 2017. I took my parents for their 40th anniversary.
And there's some really scary parts of Belize too, right?
Really scary. I remember reading the newspaper, the local newspaper, and like the top crime in the country is murder by machete.
Yeah. Hey, is that where the McAfee thing went down? Was that Belize?
I'm not even sure. I don't know what that is.
Oh, that was the guy. He ran for the Libertarian Party. Do you remember McAfee?
Oh, yeah,
security software. Yeah, he killed someone in some country over there. It's a trippy documentary. I highly recommend watching it. McAfee. When I was there, it was like a full blown jungle, and then the cities were pretty gnarly. When we would stay in the city, and the jungles, literally like at night, like you could hear jaguars. I actually caught a Jesus lizard there. Do you know what that is?
The ones that run on water.
Yeah, on 2 feet. Yeah, I actually caught one there. It was crazy. I couldn't even believe it. It was like one of those things you only see on TV as a little kid. And then when I was there, I saw one and I grabbed him. The people I was with are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity." He got all fucking put up his big old, shield, and he's all, "Come here, boy." Crazy. And so your parents meet in New York, and are they still married?
Correct.
Wow. So you grew up with both parents?
Yeah, I did. I'm very blessed.
And do you have siblings?
Yeah, there are 4 of us.
And boys or girls?
I have 2 brothers, and the youngest is my sister. I'm the oldest.
Oh, you are the oldest. Wow. And did you feel that?
Yeah.
Like the responsibility of that and the...
It it shows itself in the way I live my life today. I mean, I'm like the king of the boys, right? So I mean, speaking to all these young men on YouTube and leading guys in my gym. I played football. I was the captain of the football team. I mean, it's my karma. It's who I was meant to be here.
How did your dad? Is your dad a trippy cat?
My dad is the most alpha male I know. He didn't grow up in America where, you know, they betify us through the school system and the media. He grew up, like you said, Tarzan, totally Tarzan. He didn't wear shoes. He spent his days climbing trees to eat fruit and playing soccer with a coconut barefoot. He was a wild man. Interestingly, when we went back, he was showing us like the jungles he would run through. You know, it was like apocalypto with him and his friends. That's how we grew up. And I mean, the houses were like thatch. And it turns out, interesting, they didn't know at the time. He thought he was just running up and down through hills, but archaeologists have excavated it, and he literally grew up playing in the Mayan ruins. It was like he was running up hills that were basically temples that were covered with dirt and trees.
Crazy. I remember when I was there, I don't remember if it's a puma or it's a jaguar. Which one they have? Jaguar. Probably. It's crazy. Yeah. Just everywhere. I couldn't even fucking believe it. They're basically cats that look like pit bulls, but scarier.
Yeah, they are.
They're so scary. So he raises you. And what do you grow up eating?
I grew up eating very, very well. So my great aunt came and lived with us, and she was a cook, but she would cook traditional Belizean foods. Belize is it's an English speaking country, as you know. So there's a lot of English influence. So it's English.
It's a colony, right? Or what do they call it? The Queen still owns that shit, right?
Yeah, I forget what they call it. It was colony until like 1989 or something like that.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
And so we ended up eating a lot of traditional Belizean foods, which include like coconut rice and a lot of chicken and stewed chicken, stewed fish. But it was all like homemade, natural food, as opposed to my friends that, you know, they were eating microwave dinners that their moms would throw in, you know. And so it was very helpful to me. I mean, I was genetically gifted with a strong body, but then also with the alpha male mindset of my father, who I resented because I wish he was weak like the other dads, because he never let us get away with anything. And then eating really healthy, like home cooked meals every day.
What did it look like? What did it look like when he wouldn't let you get away with something?
He just said no. He just had boundaries. There are certain, like, for example, we never had cable TV. Like, he was just not interested in having us have us being entertained by the screen. So we had like one TV that like you had to turn with the knob. Meanwhile, like my friends had like, remember with the cable, you had like the box that had a string to the TV, and it had like all those channels. So it was, I mean, those were like small things, but as a kid, I remember thinking like, why won't my dad let us have that? Also, like being home at a certain time, like we had to be home for dinner every night. My friends, it was like, you know, they ate dinner in front of the TV whenever they felt like. My dad believed that we had to be home all day on Sundays. So he just had a lot of rules, and he had a lot of boundaries that we thought were just silly as kids. But as I grew up and had my own children, I realized, wow, my dad really saved us from the streets by having all these boundaries that we resisted.
There's this thing I call it the hostage. Don't let your kids hold you hostage. And I see so many parents being held hostage for by their kids, like almost all. It really bums me out. The hostage situation is this. I'm your child. I say, Dad, Elliott, can I watch TV today? And you quickly process, if I say no, he's going to scream and yell. Do I want to deal with that? So parents say yes. And they're held hostage by their concerns of their kids fighting back. And what parents don't realize is every time you give into that, you're making it worse. But it doesn't matter. It's not your job. It is your job to say no. Like people ask me about raising kids all the time. I have 3 little boys, and I spend almost all day with them every day, and it's all fucking boundaries. I don't give no one's holding me fucking hostage. Even if I make the wrong decision, we go with it.
Yeah.
I'll apologize after. I'll be like, sorry, you're right. I should have let you watch TV last night. But I already said no. It's all, yeah.
One of my dad's favorite lines, and I don't think he ever even saw Scarface, but do you remember, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. This is my dad, because, you know, we would pout or be upset. I mean, we couldn't talk back, but we would show our discontent. And he said, don't worry about it. I'm the bad guy. You need a bad guy like me. And so we just, you know, figured we lived with a bad guy.
Would he ever, if you like poked one of your brothers in the eye, would your dad ever make you do burpees? Like, what did you have to?
No, he was a spanker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we got spanked. There was a belt. He and my aunt. My mom really didn't spank us much. She just said, "Wait till your dad gets home."
Oh yeah.
Well, we got the belt as a kid. The belt and a vine. We had vines growing on the side of our house, and my aunt had a jump rope.
Oh.
Yeah, so we'd get lashes around our legs.
Did your mom ever have to jump in?
Jump in what way?
Like to stop her from your dad from spanking?
No,
she
didn't like it because she would get, you know, she would cringe. She'd get queasy.
Yeah,
so she would just go away. But she knew that we needed it, so she would save us sometimes where like we deserved for dad to know something, and she said, "I'm going to tell your dad when he comes home." But then she would change her mind, maybe to, you know, to prevent us. But when he had to unleash on us, she knew that's what he needs. So she would just go away.
Does your wife jump in when you discipline your daughters? Does she ever feel like, hey, Elliott, chill?
No, me and her.
No.
The only time she jumps in is like I tend to go overboard with the preaching. Like I just won't shut up. Like I'm like, it's not over because I'm not done talking yet. And she's like, okay, it's over. But she and I are on the same page 100%. In fact, I call her the commander because she will pick out things that I'll let go. A lot of times I'll just like, just leave them. And she's like, no, she can't get away with that. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we're a good team.
It's interesting also. So you ended up with 4 daughters and I ended up with 3 boys. Almost like to teach us.
3 daughters. And 1 son.
Oh, you do have a son.
Yeah, he's the youngest.
Oh, wow. Are you excited about that, or are you like, shit, it's the 4th kid? Like when I had my first kid, I remember everything about him. Then I had some twins. I'm like, I don't remember when they started walking. I don't remember when they.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah,
you know that. Even I grew up. There were 3 brothers and a sister. I actually have the opposite. He has 3 sisters, and he's the youngest as a brother. But yeah, you know, with the more kids you have, the less attention each one gets.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. My dad grew up. There were 12 of them, and my dad was like number 6. So like in fact, my dad said he didn't even know he had a dad until he was like, you know, 13, because his dad was always working in order to pay for the, you know, 12 kids that he had. So he just grew. He literally was raised by the jungle, like a pack of like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. I call it benign neglect. So like we had a dog before we had kids, and like we fawned over the dog nonstop. But then once we had kids, like the dog get to like run across the street to the neighbor's house, get into the neighbor's guy. I just call it benign neglect. You just stop. It's like, and that's how it is kind of for the every new kid you had, all the kids get a little more benign neglect. Like you stop being a helicopter parent, or what I heard you introduce the other day, which is crazy. Did you introduce that term to me? Snowplow parent? Do you know that term? I think I heard you say it.
I don't know, maybe, but I don't remember.
Oh, are you familiar with that term? Snowplow parent? It's parents who push everything out of the way for their kids to make the path easy. Like the kind of parent that would go with you like to a job interview.
Wow, no, but that sounds like the world we live in for sure.
So you built, when you had 1 million subscribers on YouTube, did YouTube allow monetization?
I didn't know about it. They did, but I didn't monetize my channel because I was like, well, first of all, I was annoyed by commercials anyway. So I was like, I don't want to put commercials on my video. But then when the Hodge twins reached out to me, they were another fitness channel, and they were doing really well. They liked what I was doing, but they asked me, he said, why don't you monetize your channel? I was like, I don't know. How much could you possibly make? A few bucks. I mean, I was selling ebooks at the time too. So I was like, I don't care. I'd rather just sell my ebooks. And so he challenged me. He said, turn on monetization and see what happens. He said, just do it. I turned it on. I made like $18,000 the first month, and then it just steadily went up. I was making like $40,000 a month. I was like, that was money I was leaving on the table for at
Yeah.
least a year.
Crazy. And were you and are you good with your money?
What do you mean by that?
Meaning, and you talk a lot about this. Hopefully, we can get into this. But are you a consumer? Like, do you save your money? Do you try to extend your runway? That's how I picture people who are good with their money.
I don't think so. If that's what you mean, not really. I use my money to buy and invest in things that are going to help my family grow stronger now. So, like for example, we just bought 42 acres of land out here in rural Florida.
I consider that saving your money.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. Wow,
But
42
yeah,
acres.
I'm not like into stock market investments or crypto or anything like that.
But property.
Yeah, property. I mean, I still have that old Belizean country boy blood running through my veins. So I've always just wanted to live rural, right? Country. And I'm blessed now to have purchased this. We're homesteading, we're homeschooling our kids, and my parents will be coming to live with us. My dad's going to build a little cabin out here on the back. And so he kind of gets to quote unquote go back home and live in the country again.
By the way, you can take a bathroom break whenever you want. That's the cool thing about my show. That's what separates me from all other podcasts. Anyone can pee at any time.
We don't have to raise our hand.
No, you just be like, hey, I'm taking a piss break.
Okay.
What is tell me about homesteading.
So the desire, the goal is to be as self-sufficient as possible. And so, for example, here, the first thing that I wanted to become sufficient in was water. Right? I don't want to be dependent on municipal water. So out here, everybody has a well. I have a well, but the problem with these wells, is that they're run by electricity. And so the electricity can go out at any moment. In fact, out here in the country, it usually does. And then it takes forever to get it turned back on. So I built a solar generator with the panels and batteries. So no matter what, I have my own water. Nobody can turn my water off. You can't even turn off my electricity to my water. So being home, the first goal of homesteading was I got to have my own water. So with that, I built an orchard. And so nobody could turn off my water and nobody's going to take away my fruit, right? So I built a bunch of fruit trees. We have a bunch of fruit trees, berries, oranges, mangoes, avocados. So the land produces what we'll eat. We started cattle ranching. We got 7 head of cattle and they're out on the pastures eating. So, I mean, worst comes to worst, I got to put a bullet in the cow's head and I got liver and ribeyes.
The thing today is just eat it raw. You just go out there and just jump on its back and take a bite out of its back.
Yeah, we could do that. I have a hard time convincing my daughters to join in that, but at least we have it.
Have you shown any of this on your social media?
Not much. Not really. I made some YouTube videos where I kind of show what I'm doing around here. But no, I'm kind of private about my life in a lot of ways. So, I mean, I don't want to be like walking around. I remember when I started making YouTube videos, it was all just me in front of the camera. Like, I'm not telling anybody, I'm not showing anybody my life. But right around the time that my channel blew up, now the whole vlogging thing came out, Casey Neistat and stuff. And it was like, bring your camera with you everywhere and show everything you're doing. He's showing like his wife waking up in the morning. And I'm like, is that what it's going to take to continue to survive on YouTube? And I had to make a decision. I was like, I'm not going to do it. Like, my life, I need something for myself. And I don't need my life on blast.
The homesteading thing is like, it's the dream for so many people, what you're doing. Like, I'll give you an example. I have a well. And I'm I'm so happy I do, right? And I have 100 fruit trees, but I am acutely aware of that other problem that you already solved that I haven't solved yet. What do? I have a generator, a gas generator, but it's still hooked up to the city's gas. So if the power goes out, it automatically fires up, but it uses the city's gas, right? But propane or whatever that gas is, methane, whatever our stoves use and our dryers use. But solar's the way, and like you're doing it. Do you have chickens?
No, that's the next thing we'll do. Apparently chickens are going to be a little bit more work, so I got to kind of gear myself up for that. Taking care of the orchard's easy. Cattle, they just graze. Chickens will require a little bit more, so that's the next one.
I think it was. I'm friends with the Liver King. I don't know if you know who that is. I think he's the one who shared this with me. He said, "You shouldn't eat chickens anyway. They're for pussies."
I hate chicken. Yeah, I don't eat chicken. The only reason I would have them was for the eggs.
Yeah,
agree with
right.
him. Yeah,
yeah,
beef
and
guy,
he does eat a
100%.
lot of eggs. He's like, you don't want, or maybe it was the carnivore MD Paul Saladino, but someone's like, yeah, you shouldn't be eating chicken. Chicken, it's just a bird. Yeah, it's just a bird, weak bird. Wow, incredible. And your daughters work the land?
No, not so much. They're homeschooling with their mom. They're involved in sports. They have their own creative pursuits at the moment. There's not much. Interestingly, there's not as much to do here as I thought there would be. And the things that do need to be done require like a man, a grown man to do, like fixing fences and stuff like that. So I end up doing a lot of it. My dad is going to be coming here, and I can't wait till he comes because I need another pair of grown man hands to do some things like repairs and stuff. But that's why I'm waiting on the chickens, because once the chickens come, I'm going to have to become a manager, and I'm going to need their help with that.
Yeah, man, you're doing exactly what I want to do. Were your parents Democrats?
My parents were apolitical. They were grateful for America to bring them in the 1970s. When they started the whole, bring in every immigrant that you possibly can. So they were grateful for that. It was like, wow, they were able to make their way here. They had to jump through a lot of hoops, but like, I guess a lot of people in their shoes at the time, I think about all of my uncles and aunts and stuff. They really didn't care. They didn't care about politics. They were like busy working, just doing what they had to do.
Because, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would speculate the Democrats are really great at leveraging the immigrants by basically making the other side look like the bad white people, and they play this they play on people's skin color, they play on people's ethnic differences, and they try to really get that poor me narrative going, right? Avoid discomfort. Everyone's against you. Don't worry. Right. We're going to build a safe space for you. Daddy's going to build the daddy government's going to build a safe space for you. Were you ever a Democrat?
So that ideology is so pervasive, especially if you understand that cultural Marxism is the brainwashing of the day. So that was kind of a default. That was a default for me. I think it was a default for my parents.
Yes.
They didn't know, they didn't think about it. It was just what Oprah was saying, right? They weren't really, and it wasn't until, for me, it wasn't until Donald Trump, to be completely honest, because I became apolitical at a point too. I was like, it wasn't Donald Trump. It was when Ron Paul was running against Obama, and I was listening to the debates, because of course I had to vote for Obama, right? I'm black, and
brother, he's
my guy. Yeah, there's no question. But then I'm listening to Ron Paul talk, and I'm like, wait a second, this guy is actually saying something, because the political jargon is basically just speaking in circles. They're not saying anything. Ron Paul was like teaching history during the debates, and so my eyes opened up, and I went down the rabbit hole with him and started reading all the books he recommended and became libertarian. And it wasn't until, for my parents, I became libertarian at that point. I was like, which leaned Republican. So I was like, Ron Paul was my guy. But once Obama got elected the second time, I just washed my hand. I was like, America doesn't get it. Then when I
want to stop you really quick. Which book did you read that helped you start to think more clearly?
Well, all of his books, Ron Paul's books, Liberty Defined, End the Fed. And he's got another one, a couple of them.
Did you ever read David Boaz's book, Libertarianism?
No.
Okay. Just curious. Okay.
When Trump ran, first of all, he was very interesting. He was fascinating to listen to. I was still kind of apolitical at that point. I was kind of thinking in terms of, this is just entertainment, forget it. But then when he actually got into office and was doing and saying the things that most of which, not all of it, but he promised to do, I became a big fan. And then I started, because he reminded me of my dad. That was the thing. Like when I saw the way he was behaving and how he didn't care about being a bad guy, I was like, this guy is just like my dad. So I started showing my dad Donald Trump clips. Like, check him out, watch what he says. And my dad would just crack up and laugh, because my dad's objective about himself. He knows, he laughs at himself. So he's watching Trump and he's just in love. He's like, this guy is awesome. And so my dad became a Trump fan. My mom hated him because my mom watches Oprah. And that's when my family started becoming political, because Donald Trump and my dad are like the same.
I want to see if I can share this. I don't know what's going on with my screen share. Let me see if I can share this. Well, son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. I just saw Trump say, I saw a quote says, when I was at the White House, we had peace through strength. They didn't fuck around with us. Did you see that quote that just came out from him?
No, but that sounds like something he'd say. It's true, man. It's true.
When Trump came out, I was repulsed by him. My liberal side thought that he was offensive towards women. He was rude. He grabbed pussy. I thought don't laugh at me. I was really turned off by him. And then I was at my house one day, and a bunch of people were talking about how he was racist, and they were talking about all the racist shit he did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a trigger word for me. And so I went and started trying to figure out where he was racist. And the stuff that they were saying he said, he never said.
Right.
They were saying that he was racist against Mexicans, and I was only seeing that he loved Mexicans, and that all he said was that they're sending us their bad people.
Right.
And then I went to all the liberal media outlets, and I started looking at the January 6th riots, and I read the transcript, and he said, let's protest peacefully on the Capitol. And then the more and more I looked into that, and I started comparing those riots to the Ferguson riots, and I'm like, there's not even a comparison. You can't even, like, you have to look at Ferguson and take care of that problem before you even consider what happened on January 6th, in my opinion. $750 million damage versus $30 million damage. Like, if the Capitol riots were really riots, they would have started that building on fire. They would have lit a match. And for some reason, and I had already been around it for 10 years because Greg Glassman was a hardcore libertarian. Hardcore. But that was the final straw for me. Like, I'm not a fan of lying.
Right. It's so obvious. All you got to do is watch the media to know what not to believe. And they're so implicit. They're so obvious with their lying these days. I mean, right through COVID to where we are right now with Ukraine, there's not a sentence that comes out of the media's mouth that is truthful.
It's sad. So I have this weekly call with a kid, a CrossFitter who's in Ukraine, right? And of course, and he's in Odessa, and of course he's freaking out. And I don't blame him. His country's under attack. He's there, and every week we talk for an hour and a half, and he reports to us what it's like on the ground. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but his basic question is how come the world's not coming to save us? And what I try to explain to him is like, hey, in the United States, the media outlets for the last 2 years that have been lying to us about COVID are now the ones telling us what's going on in the Ukraine, and we don't believe them.
Right.
They've lost all credibility.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what you think about this statement. People will say, well, everyone was scared about COVID in the beginning, and everyone believed it for a second. And I always go, no, I never believed it for a second. I never wore a mask. I never put my shoes on. I never stopped picking my nose. I still wipe my eyes every day. I would never. My kids still went to all the jiu-jitsu classes. I still, when they had the yellow tape around the things, I cut it. And they said, how did you not be afraid? I said, because I can do third grade math. I just looked at the numbers.
Yeah. Right.
Average in China, the average age of death was over 65 with 30 years of smoking under their belt.
Mm-hmm.
The average age of death in Sweden for COVID was 80 years old, and the average age of death in Sweden without COVID was 82. I was like, this shit ain't nuts. This thing kills fat people.
Right.
Did you ever fall for it?
No.
Yeah.
Not for an instant.
Oh, you're my hero, man.
Yeah. Not for an instant. And for me, this is my dad speaking, but I'm not afraid to die. I'm not going to alter my life to save my life. I'm not going to go out of my way, wearing masks and avoiding people and doing all this stuff in order to quote unquote save my life. I don't want to become a slave to my life. And so it was like, look, if this thing's going to kill me, then that's God's plan.
You're I am afraid to die. Afraid maybe is not the right word. I'm motivated to spend as much time with I can with my kids, and dying kind of fucks that up.
Yeah, but living, here's how the quote goes: living on your knees versus dying on your feet.
Okay.
Look, if
Okay.
you're gonna die, you're gonna die anyway. I don't want to die like a coward wearing a stupid mask
Yes.
and,
Yes.
and behaving like a scared freak. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die either way, but let it be on my feet.
Yeah, I tell my
Dignity.
kids that if my kids point to a candy bar, I go, you can have that, but then you got to wear this the rest of your life. I hold up a mask. They're like, fuck that. We'll pass on the candy bar.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
and it's a big lesson. Exactly. If we have children, I can't have my children see me, first of all, cower in fear, and second of all, to pander to tyranny. There's no way.
man, there were these, I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's like the rookie hour over here. Usually I have a guy in the back end working it. There was another video I wanted to show you too that I thought you would absolutely love. I'll just send these to you when we're off the air. I was never going to get married or have kids. I thought marriage was you were a tool of the man if you did that that was just fucking nonsense. And I was never going to have kids. And then when my wife was 39 and I was 43, someone said to her, if you don't have kids, you might regret it. If you do have kids, you won't regret it. And I did the algebra on that, and I was like, fuck. And she's like, so you just got to give me one. I want to see this shit. I said, okay. So we had one. And then because we had one, we just stopped practicing, safe sex. And so, of course, she got pregnant again. We just got really sloppy. You just get crazy, right? Pull the goalie, and it's like, just party on. Yep. And so I ended up with 3 boys. Great. I've never felt like anything, Elliott, my whole life. When I was the executive director of media at CrossFit, I never felt that way. I never felt like, I don't know what it's like to feel like a man. I don't have a gender. I guess I'm non-binary. I don't feel like, I directed and produced over 10 movies, huge documentaries. I never felt like a filmmaker. But when I had kids, I'm like, holy fuck, I'm a dad. Like, I do dad shit. You know what I mean? Like, which kind of maybe even transcends man. I'm surprised you got married.
I married my high school girlfriend.
A radical man like you. What did you think about marriage? I eventually got married because I just wanted, if I die, all my shit to go to my wife, or vice versa. If my wife died, I want all her shit to come to me. But why did you get married? Or what was your evolution of thought? And now I'm glad I'm married. Don't get me wrong. I'm really happy I'm married. But what was your evolution of thought about marriage?
It was never a question. I come from a strong family, and my family is pro-family, and my family's pro-big family. And so it was just kind of in me to see my future. I couldn't imagine not having a wife, not having a family. No other vision of my life manifested. I met my wife. We started dating when we were teenagers. We were in 9th grade. And so we were together. I was basically married since then, because we were together that whole time, all through high school, all through college. By the time we were 23, we wanted to start having children. And so we got married and started having children. We had our first child. I guess we got married at 20. She was 22. So she was 23. I was 24 when we had our first child. And
was it planned?
Yeah. It was, because about that time I became a personal trainer. I started learning, and the internet was just coming about and becoming popular. And so I started learning things that were counterculture, like birth control pills are actually a bad idea. Contraception can destroy a woman's body. And now I understand even why that it's an affront to God and creation. But back then it was, oh my goodness, I was reading Dr. Mercola's website, right? So this is like 2001, 2002. And I started doing research on various aspects of natural health as a trainer. And I began learning about, health for preparing to have children. And so, a year after we got married and I learned this, I was like, all right, you got to get off these chemicals. And so she got off, and 6 months later we had a baby, and we just kept going after that.
Birth control pills are a trip, huh?
Yeah. And back then, I guess, and I wonder, I kind of live in a bubble, so I don't know how it is with most people, But back then it was just so omnipresent. It was just kind of a given. It's like, oh, your daughter's 16. She need, and the doctors would be like, she needs to go on birth control pills. I remember my sister too. The doctor was like, oh, this is just, it was like taking vitamins. It's like, oh, she needs to go on birth control pills. And we just back then took whatever the doctor said for granted. Oh yeah, okay, sure. I mean, you're 16. You should be on birth control pills. No conversation about sex. No conversation about the implications or the ramifications of bodily health. There's nothing. We didn't think anything of it. It was just like, oh, you're 16, take this pill. Now I think people are waking up and realizing just how detrimental it is, given the tremendous amounts of cancer that has even come about because of it.
Same journey with finding Ron Paul first, then liking Trump. I'd rather have my pussy grabbed than a pussy for a president.
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you, Olivia? 20 burpees. When my boys are bad, I have them do burpees, whatever fuck bad means. And basically I have them do burpees so that I have time to figure out how the fuck I'm really going to deal with the situation, right? Like someone's about to get a forearm to the face. I'm like, someone better do burpees instead. And if you cry, you have to do double the burpees. If you don't cry, you do half the burpees. So like your brother's eating his food and you fucking hit the back of his hand and shove the fork into his mouth and think it's funny. You got to do 20 burpees. If you cry and complain, you got to do 40. If you don't, it's 10. So they know. They just jump down and knock 10 out just like crazy. It's pretty funny. We'll be in the funniest places. You know what I mean? Just like in line somewhere. And I'm like, 20 burpees. And they just all drop. And they're good brothers too. Like if I give it to one, the other two will be like, we'll do them with you. Don't worry. Don't cry. Don't cry. So tell me about this. Your thoughts. You were saying that it's an affront on God and creation, birth control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Explain that to me?
So where do I begin? First of all, this whole idea of a sexual revolution is of Marxist theory. The idea that you have to remove sex from procreation is a means by which feminism makes its rise. So birth control pills and abortion is a means of destroying intersexual dynamics between men and women and destroying the family, which is ultimately the goal of cultural Marxism in order to take over.
Why do you say destroy? Why not alter?
What do you mean alter?
Like it changes the dynamic, but it doesn't destroy it, right?
Oh, it destroys it. When when you change the function of a thing, you destroy it. If I take the wheels off of my car, well, yeah, I altered it, but it's destroyed. It's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Sex and procreation go together. And so among many things that birth control and contraception have destroyed is the dignity of men in particular. Men now have free access to sex. Not even going to talk about the women. I deal with men mostly. Men have free access to sex. When men have free access to anything that gives them pleasure, they're going to become addicted to it. If somebody says, free access to porn, look what happens. Free access to marijuana, look what happens. Free access to anything that gives pleasure creates addiction. What makes sex addiction that much worse is that you're not just a slave to technology. You're not a slave to pornography, which is, there are no people there. You're not just a slave to a drug. You're not essentially not hurting anybody. You're a slave to women. You become a slave to vagina. And we see this with the way the pickup artistry movement has happened and how men and, the dating apps, they call them simps, but essentially men have shelved everything as it relates to becoming dignified in their lives for the pursuit of sex. That wouldn't be the case if there were natural boundaries around sex. When you remove the natural boundaries, we begin to live in a very unnatural way, which is, hungry, sex addicted simps.
People have I've heard that term on Instagram. What does that mean, simp, exactly? I've heard people say it in a derogatory
way. Someone will
way.
do anything to get some sex, essentially.
Gotcha.
Hungry for attention from women so that they can get their rocks off, get their needs met, get their drug hit.
You said something in that podcast with Mark and Simi. I highly recommend. I know some of you guys are like, why do you always compliment other podcasts? because I don't watch very many, but if I steal shit from them, I'm gonna give them credit. You said on their podcast, I think it was on their podcast, you said that masturbation gives you a false sense of accomplishment. I was like, holy shit. I shared that with my wife. I was like, wow, I've never heard of masturbation explained like that. Do you know who Patrick Bet David is?
Yeah.
I had him on the show, and he said that at one point in his life, he said he's not going to have sex until he makes $1 million. So he went 17 months without having sex. And I thought that was fucking brilliant, because I'm the kind of guy who, like, I would be at the gym and I'd be like, okay, if I bench this 135, 100 reps, that girl over there will date me. And even though I would finish, 100 reps, I would do it in as many sets as I could. And of course, that girl never dated me, but I would set little prizes up like that for myself. Delusionary prizes. You know what I mean? But I just thought that was fucking brilliant. And I really liked the way you said that too. There should be a whole book of like short, quick phrases like that really help people get their head wrapped around what sex is, what masturbation is, like these little anecdotal stories. Have you ever done that? Leverage your sexual desire to get a goal?
Yeah, I remember I had a gym in my basement. My dad bought me some barbells when I was a kid. I was like 14, and I would put pictures. I'd be pictures of bodybuilding women on the wall that were looking hot, and I would just, I don't know, I guess I would use it to motivate myself. Like, if I get big, strong, and ripped, or become a professional football player, then women like this will pay attention to me.
Yeah, leveraging the ego to get work done.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
but
ever?
Then we make women our god, and that becomes a problem too. They say putting the puss on a pedestal. Well, that's essentially what it is. It's like, now everything I do is motivated by getting validation from women that I hope will open their legs for me.
Holy shit, dude. Do you do a podcast? Do you have a podcast?
No, I still make YouTube videos where I speak like this for the most part, but I don't have
There's this guy you got to meet. His name's Nicky Rodriguez. Do you know who he is? He's a jiu-jitsu guy, kid. He's from Jersey. He has a jiu-jitsu school in Austin. It's called B Team. He kind of just exploded on the scene. He's this big, beautiful guy. He was training with Gordon Ryan, the best guy in jiu-jitsu in the world, and they had a little bit of a breakup. So and he's really good, and it catapulted into fame. But when I was asking him, I was like, dude, how do you stay so focused on competing and training? You're so beautiful. How do you not get distracted by women? He goes, I would never be distracted by women. I go, what do you mean? He goes, fucking look at me. I don't chase women. Women chase me. And I was like, holy fuck. What I mean? Like this, This is alpha, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. That's maintaining your own frame.
Explain that to me. What is that? Explain that to me.
It's exactly what he said. He says, you live as,
and he said it with all humility.
Center.
He said it with all humility. There was no arrogance when he said it. It was just like a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. It's men are a distraction to the people in power, because men are the ones that notice when boundaries are breached, or that values are destroyed, and that societies are on their way down. So they need to step up. It's always men that produce these magnificent revolutions, right? The 3% here in America. So the oligarchs understand that they need to solve the problem of men. And so Stephen Arnio, in his book, Hard Times Create Strong Men, says this is beautiful. He puts it this way with regard to video games, but it's also as it relates to women. That men solve problems and video games solve men. Men solve problems, like there's a problem in society. Sex addiction, pornography, video games, effeminacy solve the problem of men. And so if we're not living by our own set of values, we're not working towards some great end, we don't have a mission or a purpose that's transcendent and above and beyond my mere desire for attention and validation from the opposite sex, then women become our center of focus rather than mission. Men are to be mission driven. Men are supposed to be creative, outwardly creative. Women are inwardly creative. They create children. Why put our focus on women And women, they put their focus on their creativity. Like they told your wife, if she doesn't make babies, she's going to be regretful. She has to focus on her creativity. But why do we make women our creativity when women can make themselves their own creativity? Men need to make their mission, make their purpose, make their revolution, make their great whatever it is that is calling them out in the world, their mission first. The fighter makes his fighting first. And then a woman becomes added to or steps into that frame. So the frame is a man's mission, his purpose, his meaning, the meaning he makes for his life. And also women prefer that as well. Women don't really want men to make them their gods. They would take it and they like it because it gives them a sense of power, given, Eve, and like you said before with Eve in the garden, she wants to have that sense of power, but ultimately she'll resent you. If you make a woman your center, at some point she's going to start to resent you. A woman wants a man that's on his purpose, that is building his life, and she wants to be a part of that, not the center of it, regardless of what they say.
You're so right. I have friends, but I'll try to keep this somewhat ambiguous, but I have a friend basically who was so good to this woman. And I would always tell him, like, hey, you better stop doing that. You better stop doing that. You better just be yourself. You better like, and then finally men will do that to an unsustainable level. The relationship will then end up going to marriage, or they'll end up having a kid, or something will happen. Right. And basically, so now, no matter how alpha, and I'll ask you to define that in a second, no matter how alpha a woman is, she still needs an alpha male in the house. And if you let the woman be the alpha, eventually she'll resent you, and the house will have two betas, and then the house will have no leadership. And then if you have kids, the kids will assume the role of a leader, and they will be the most stressed out, mentally fucked up kids ever, because as they get older, they won't have had any boundaries.
Yeah, this is what we have right now.
Yeah,
so you asked me earlier about destroying the family or altering the family. That's an altered family, i.e. a destroyed family. And a big part of the reason, now go back to birth control, how did we get here? Well, once men began believing that they needed to live their lives in order to get between the legs of a girl that they're not even married to, that whole paradigm of woman first becomes their default. Now they bring that into their marriage, like you just described, and then they have children now that see that and believe that. Of course, the media tells them that, and they're living it in their home. There's a perpetual decline of the stability of the family. A family without a strong alpha male father is like an animal without a head. It's a beast with no head. It's ugly and it's distorted. It's destroyed.
People ask me all the time, Sevan, how are your kids so happy? How are they so well behaved? I go, they know their boundaries. Their boundaries are so fucking firm and strict, and so they're free. You understand that? They have such strict boundaries that they're fucking free. They can go fucking berserk. They have not a worry in the world because they know their boundaries.
And
the TV does not go on
a firm foundation with you and your wife.
Say that again.
They also stand on a firm foundation with you and your wife.
Yes,
you have a solid, strong, well-ordered relationship with your wife. So your children have no anxiety about, first of all, who is in charge, or what are our values, or who should I listen to, or there's none of that.
Right. The example is I see people, like, my kids are never allowed to touch my cell phone and never allowed to touch my car keys. The TV never ever goes on except on Friday nights and Saturday nights after the sun goes down, and it's just one movie. And so we never have those small battles. I would never fight with them over my phone or my keys, or they're never asking on Monday at 6 p.m. can I watch TV? And so because of that, we never have those fights. At 6 o'clock, my kids are outside throwing rocks as hard as they can against the fence, telling me, hey, come out here, we found a lizard. Nice. Can we keep it? That's where our fight is. Can we keep the lizard? Not that fight that people have with their kids every fucking night about, can I watch TV? And then you're like, well, have you brushed your teeth yet? No, there's my kids have boundaries. They know, and they're free within them.
Right. Yep.
You go do your shit. You know the rules. Your shit's free. And then when they catch the lizard and they say, can I keep it? Then we have to set new boundaries. We're like, okay, what would that mean? We need to build a cage for it. Who's going to feed it? Have we looked up on how to take care of a lizard and that shit? Yeah, it's cool. How did you learn to think clearly? Do you know
I'm
what
not really sure if I think that clearly. My mind's all over the place.
Let me give you an
ADHD
example,
kid.
not to have emotion interfere. So let me give you an example. So when I hear people talk about the homeless problem in the world, it frustrates me because there is no homeless problem in the world. And there is a drug problem. That is the issue, and the symptom is homelessness. So there's all these people who want to fix homelessness, but they're not thinking clearly. They're not defining words. They're emotional. They're bringing their own shit to it. They're not and there's lots of examples of like that, like COVID. There is no danger from COVID. That is the symptom. The issue is that we have Americans that eat too much added sugar and too much refined carbohydrates, and they're fat, and that's fucked up their immune systems. But we have people like, how did you learn to, like, I was around really fucking smart people who'd be like, what do you mean by that? Define that. And I'd be like, fuck. And that's how I learned to think clearly. Like, what do you mean by homeless? What do you mean? What do you mean that person died of COVID? What exactly? And how did you learn that? Because I know you think clearly like that too. Like, you break things down, you define shit.
Not always. You know, there was a time where
fuck that question then.
No, well, there was a time when I was thinking like a beta male, because that's the way the world teaches us.
Yes, me
We live in
too.
a world where emotion reigns, right? And so people,
Yes,
they believe that what they feel is true. And the height of that diabolical disorientation is transgenderism. I feel like a woman, therefore I alter reality. You must now call me a woman. So it's gone to the heights of ridiculousness with regard to feeling becoming truth.
yes.
And there was a time where I gave into that a little bit, right? I think mostly in my early 20s, right? That's when I was more of a liberal bent, because that's what I thought was true and was right. It really wasn't until I started having my own children that I started to think like my father. I got a lot of my dad's wisdom that was pounded into my head. I resisted until I had my own children. Then it was like, oh, my dad was right. Oh, my dad was right. And then it all started coming back online. But the bottom line is that we have reason. We have to put reason above emotion. We have to put logic above emotion. A lot of things that we take for granted, all you have to do is like look at it mathematically. But hey, mathematics is racist now. 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4. So I can see now how diabolical this attachment to emotion actually is. And in fact, because the world has gone so far down that path, it's very easy to be reasonable. All you have to do is just look. For the most part, you can get the truth if you just open your eyes. You don't have to do too much digging. Like, if that's a man and he's calling himself a woman, all you got to do is look and say, wait a second. Oh, that's actually a man. No, you can't say that. But that requires mental gymnastics. I'm not going to pretend like you're a woman or a man. I know that you have the genitals of a man. All it requires is, oh, there's a truth, and then there's what you're making up. It's pretty simple. In fact,
I have a friend who's a math teacher. He has 4 kids. A couple weeks ago, the Pfizer released its studies with how the vaccine's working on kids under the age of 12, between the ages of 5 and 12. It was a study of 2,400 kids, 1,200 in the control group, 1,200 who took the vaccine. And I sent this to my friend who has 4 kids. I go, hey, dude, and I read it, and I go, hey, dude, you should read this. If you're thinking about getting your kids a vaccine, you should read this first. And he responds back to me, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wrote, no, you're a math teacher. I'm sending you fucking the study. You're a math teacher. I thought you'd want to see the fucking study.
Right.
And that's what I mean. I used to be like that too. What? Say that again?
I'm sorry. The craziest thing is that these are smart people. They're not dumb people. How did they lose their marbles so easily?
I mean, for me, it was you nailed it. You nailed it. I was raised that way. I come from immigrant parents who are going to have a bend towards being Democrats. My parents are extremely good, nice people, right? And so that's the thing with the Democrats, help the poor, but now we know it's really keep them poor. Yeah. And school, I was raised that way. I was raised that way in school. I mean, really the thing that really nails it is discomfort. If it wasn't for the fact that I'd stumbled on CrossFit and I started hanging around all these SEALs and all these cops and all these first responders and realized, then I'd be really fucked. I'd have been fucked. It would have been a mess. Here's what happens too.
Well, this is why we need men. And I talked before about destroying the family. It goes all the way back to that. With all due respect, your family was destroyed.
Yeah.
And so when you destroy the family, the problem of little boys is solved because now they take on the mind of their mothers.
Yes. And I did have the mind of my mom. Like I told you, I saw it without anyone ever telling me that. I saw that. I was like, holy shit, I am my mom. And then she died. And then she died. I mean, not like she died. I mean, she's probably watching the show now. She's a great lady. But she died. And then I saw, and then I saw the father. I saw the light.
Right. We need fathers. That's what's going to repair the mess that we're in right now, is the return to the father and the return to the traditional, well-ordered family. Without that, any utopia without that is a dystopia.
Have you read any Thomas Sowell?
I've watched some of his videos. Actually, in fact, I've skimmed through some of his books, but I haven't read them fully. Yeah. Familiar with him. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, you're a fan. Me too. Yeah, some of his books, he basically will just go through and show you, like, they'll be like, this is he'll show how fatherless homes transcend all the race talk. So it'll be like, someone will be like, hey, it's all black dudes in jail. And he'll be like, no, actually, it's 85% of the people in jail come from homes that don't have a father. Oh, it's all black dudes who are dying of cancer more than white people. No, actually, the people who die of cancer, they predominantly don't have father. And it's fucking crazy how he does that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's spot on with that.
I didn't know any of this when I had kids. Did you? Well, yeah, I guess I'm like you too. When I had kids, there was kind of a shift in me.
Particularly with daughters. It really ramped up big time with regard to daughters because, well, they're a bit more susceptible to the brainwashing of the culture.
They are? Why is that?
Well, because they're emotional.
Oh, okay.
They'll go more, just, the whole movement towards emotionalism over logic is feminism at its peak. It's because it's okay. It's normal. It's natural for women to respond based on emotion. That's why they're mothers. It's very good for them to have, open hearts and to be vulnerable and to be egalitarian. These are things that are normal and natural for a woman. But for a man, in order to protect the space for a woman to be that way, we have to be strong. We have to be masculine. We have to be boundary setters.
Yeah. Earlier, you said something about 3%. What did you mean by that? Men are a distraction to the people in power, and then somehow you slipped in there. That's why we need the 3%. Do you know what I'm referencing?
Oh, no, the American Revolution was won by 3% of the men in the country.
Oh,
the American Revolution. You ever heard that? It only took 3% of the men to band together to fight in the Revolutionary War.
How big do you think this? Who do you think's in the majority here? Do you think it is this woke mob, or do you think it is, and bear with me if you don't want to be lumped up with me, but I want to be lumped up with you, Elliott. Is it people like me and you?
I think it's us. I think we are. The problem is that the Marxists own the media. So if you watch the news, you watch the TV shows, you watch the movies, you read the newspapers, you'll think that, oh, this is the way everybody thinks. Same thing like with COVID. I think the majority of people were not afraid of COVID. But because they kept pounding it into us through the media, they made us believe, and this is the point, if everybody else is afraid, then I must be afraid too. So I think it's a lie that they're the majority. The wokes are the minority. And that, I mean, you just look at Donald Trump. Without being a conspiracy theorist, I think it's pretty evident that election was stolen. I know for a fact here in Florida, most people are conservative at this point anyway. For them to have held off the final vote for Florida to the night before, to the next day, I knew that they were doing something fishy. Anyway, I don't remember where I was going with that. But the point is,
we're just talking about the balance of power here.
People, yeah. It's so obvious. Most people are rational. I think that it's the loud, squeaky wheel minority that makes us believe that this wokeism is somehow ever present.
Are you a religious man?
I'm Catholic, yes.
And I see that there's a cross back there. And is that a picture of what's below that picture or below the cross?
That's Joseph, Saint Joseph, the father of Christ.
And that's his son in his hand?
Yep. Yep. The terror of demons is his name. They call him the terror of demons.
Jesus?
No, Joseph.
Oh.
He fought off all the demons that were meant to destroy his son, by helping his family escape and saving them throughout all the persecution that was coming. And I see myself as that father figure. I'm that father for my own children, and I'm that father figure for a lot of young men worldwide. So I'm very inspired by Joseph. It's hard to see, but he's got there's a demon under his foot there. It's a dragon, a black dragon, and the baby has a spear right through that dragon, and he's got his hand up like that. You see.
I really like that. How did you said that you were raised Catholic?
I was baptized and I went through, Catholic initiation as a child.
Have you ever hit rock bottom?
Yeah. You could say so. For me it was rock bottom, yeah.
Can you share that story?
Yeah. So, I'll keep it short, but right after I became very popular on YouTube, about 2014. In fact, I was looking at my old journals. I would, keep journals. For some reason, I don't know now what was going through my head, but I do know what I was doing that was destroying my life. I was very miserable. I was not very happy at all. And I started smoking weed. So between 2015 and 2019, I became a pothead.
So you started late in life with weed.
Yeah, I never smoked weed until I was like 35.
Yeah, interesting.
And I was like, because I reached what I thought was the peak. I was like, well, I did it. I'm here. I have everything I want. And something just began to come over me where I don't know. I don't necessarily think that I lost motivation, but I lost a sense of drive. I lost a sense of purpose and meaning. My life became empty in that way, even though I had children, because I was still very selfish at the time. And so I started smoking weed. And, as a man who stands in front as a leader and one who gives advice about being a strong man, I realized how very weak I was because I couldn't stop smoking. And, people say that, oh, marijuana is not addicting, but that's not true at all. As many times as I tried to kick it, I was like, I just kept going back to it. And so that went on for about 5 years. And I hit rock bottom at some point when I was like, I am so weak that I can't give up this effeminate addiction. And it was slowing me down big time. Now that I've quit, my life has just skyrocketed again. Like I'm back on track. But it totally threw me off. And I absolutely could not stop by my own will. And that's when I reverted. I came back to the Catholic faith. One day I was crying by myself. I was in my backyard. I was like just feeling like I couldn't do anything. I actually had thoughts of suicide. I was like, I'd be better off if I was dead. I probably wouldn't have done it. Definitely wouldn't have done it. But it started creeping into my mind. And so I was not religious at all. I was more of a new ager at the time. And I reached out to God because I always believed there was a God, but I didn't know much about the God of the Bible, at least. And I said, look, listen, all these Christians are telling me that if I ask you to help me, and my mom used to say, lay it at the cross, let go and let God. If I ask you to help me with this, then I'll dedicate myself to you because I can't do this on my own. Here I am, strongman Elliott, who's too weak. I'm telling you, I am too weak, Lord, to do this. I need your help. And he gave me the grace, but he requested something of me. He gave me the grace to quit. But people say God speaks to them. I don't know if God wasn't like coming down from the cloud, but an idea popped into my head. And all I can do is say that it must have been from God, a grace from God, because I wouldn't have thought it myself. I hadn't been to Catholic church since I was, 12 or 13. It's been 30 something years. And I would have never even imagined going to Catholic church because I had so many hangups and prejudices against it due to the infiltration and disorientation that the world has brought forth in the church. Like, I learned all about that later. But God said to me, or my conscience said to me, go and confess your sins. Go to a priest and tell him everything that you've done over the past 30 years. And to me, that was like weird. I was like, what? Where? What priest? I don't even know where there's a Catholic church. How do I do a confession? I haven't done confession since I was 12 years old. And this is, so I knew it wasn't of my own logic. I didn't make that up because I wouldn't have thought of that. And so I went on YouTube and I learned how to give a confession. And I went and I wrote out a long list of all the things that I excused myself for doing, but were absolutely putting me to a state of mortal sin and darkening my intellect. And I went and I confessed. And it was a crazy experience because
you wrote it out and took the paper with you?
Yeah, I took it with me. I had to write down what to say. I don't know how to do confession. Here I'm 40 years old and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I walk in there and there was a long line. I was surprised. I was like, wow, that's a long line. I was a lot
of bad motherfuckers in this world.
Yeah, I guess. I was like, wow, people actually do this. They're really Catholics here. I just thought it was crazy. And I waited on that line. And then right when it was my turn to go, the priest walked out of the confessional. He says, I'm going to celebrate mass now. You'll have to wait. And I just how I know that there's a spiritual battle going on. I sat there as the next person to go, and I was like, I'm not going to wait. What? This is crazy. I waited for like an hour. Now I got to wait again. And I got up and I walked out. And as I walked out, I pushed the door, and once again, something just knocked me on my head and said, what are you, stupid? You sat there for an hour. Turn around and go sit back down. And I went and I asked the guy who was behind me in line if I could sit back down. I went and sat back down. I waited for the mass, and then I went into the confessional and spoke to him. And I couldn't even say the words on my paper because I was crying. I was just bawling my eyes out. And from that moment on, it's been a journey, but I've dedicated my life to God in Christ through the reception of the sacraments and living a fully Catholic life.
Did you walk out of there feeling different?
I felt relieved. I think the crying is like an orgasm. I learned this through studying bioenergetic analysis. The crying reflex, the coughing is a pulsation that brings release through the face. And so I was able to, I was blowing my nose. It was just a big release that happened. So when I walked out of there, it wasn't like, a light was shining on me because now I'm walking with the Lord. It was, wow, there was a heaviness that was in my soul that needed to be released. And that sacrament was what allowed that to happen.
I saw you doing that breathing thing on Mark Bell's podcast last night. I probably worked out. Yesterday was my fasting day. I fast for 36 hours once a week for the last almost 2 years. I stopped eating Saturday night. I don't start again till Monday morning. But yesterday, I basically was like fucking around with weights and the air runner the whole time. I was in there like in a mace. And when you did that, I did it too. And I almost fucking knocked myself out. I almost fainted. I needed to take bigger breaths.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of power. There are a lot of these people that are using psychedelics now, ayahuasca and stuff, not realizing that we have the natural means to release a lot of the darkness or the confusion merely through breathing. Breathing you can work yourself into a psychedelic experience through breathing and release a lot of trapped trauma. A lot of the new trauma release therapies and post-traumatic stress syndrome therapies are body and breath based.
I on that note, I'd like to say this to all those people out there who are doing that stuff. If you're doing ayahuasca, if you're doing LSD, if you're doing MDMA for therapy, you are really, really playing with fire in this respect.
Yeah.
And I touched on this earlier in the podcast. As you become closer to enlightenment, as you become closer to fucking realizing what you are or aren't, however you want to phrase it, if you don't have the tools in place when you receive that power, you will fucking go batshit crazy.
Yeah.
So I like, before you think, like, people are before you do mushrooms, before you start microdosing, you need a fucking practice of 30 minutes of meditation every single day. You need to learn what this word space means. You need to be able to create space. By the way, that's another fascinating thing. If you want to see someone who is creating a ton of space, watch the Mark Bell podcast with Elliott Hulse, and you will see Elliott create space. What I see you doing in that podcast, and feel free to tell me to fuck off, is they ask you questions and you're in no rush to answer, and you are like plucking these answers down like you're hearing them from the first time from the heavens. It reminds me of Stephen King wrote a book. It's called On Writing. It's his only nonfiction book. And he basically, someone says, you know, where did these writings come from? Your inspiration? He goes, fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I tell you, if you don't pull it down, it's just going to go by. So you better pull that shit down. And I was thinking about how I would explain that to other people. And I can't explain to you how it works because it is divine, but I can explain to you the inverse of it. And I wonder what you think about this, Elliott. If there are these trigger words that, like, I could say to someone, I could say the word abortion. I could say Trump. I could say divorce. I could say kike. And when people hear these words, it pushes them into their head and they start up a software program, right?
Yeah.
And people who can create space, they either don't allow that to happen, or when that does happen, they watch it and let it pass and let the new evolve thought arise underneath it. Like this whole idea of abortion, I think it's such a, and we've talked about it on the show a lot. I think it's so intense because I don't believe in setting laws over people's bodies. I also don't believe in killing kids. So every time this conversation comes up, you have to rethink it. You cannot go with your automated response. You need to ask the higher power. You need to ask God every time for a fresh, new, stronger, healthier perspective on topics. And like, if someone says Trump and you immediately get defensive, it's like you're in your head.
Yeah.
Like, and it's okay. We all do that, but you have to let it go. Does any of this resonate with you? And how did you overcome these things? Like going in your head and being so judgmental?
I think Stephen Covey says between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space, you'll find life, something like that.
Mm.
And so I recognize I'm very impulsive, to be completely honest. I'm a super impulsive guy. I'm very feeling also too. You know, I'm speaking about, you know, operating from emotion. I know what it's like to operate from emotion because I have strong emotions. And so for me, it's a matter of creating space, right? If somebody says something, I feel it right away. The fire rises. I do have that gut reaction.
Yeah.
I work on it. You know, I recognize, but the whole thing is being objective about it. I feel it and I'm like, whoa, okay. I have to breathe. And like you said, create space. That space is not naturally there for me. I have to actually stop and create space so I can say, okay, what is the best way to respond rather than react?
And it's working for you, man. You say gems are falling out of your mouth. Yeah.
I also have a tendency towards pride. And so it's very resourceful for me to thank the Lord and, you know, give all glory to God. I'm this way because God made me this way. My dad is a lot this way. He's a preacher. He's a speaker. He gives his opinion. And so there was a time when, you know, when you asked me about hitting rock bottom, a big part of the reason why I know I hit rock bottom is because I believe that I was the one that made myself successful. And when we tend to believe that we're the ones that make something great happen in our lives, when things don't go well or you get a little bit of a hiccup, then it's very easy to take that same responsibility and start saying, whoa, I messed this up. So I created this, but then I messed that up. And so it becomes sort of, like a pendulum, you know, from elation to depression. And the reason why that happens is because we take everything so personally. Oh, look at how amazing I am. Everybody loves me. I'm so good at making videos. I have 1 million subscribers. Oh, this person is making videos about me that make me look bad. Oh man, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Oh no, my life is. And so it was a bipolar swinging. Today, for me, it's most resourceful to separate myself from both ends of that spectrum. So even as you're saying a lot of nice things for me, but not out of a sense of false humility, but out of practical application of what's going to keep me grounded, I hear you, And I say, well, glory be to the Lord. It's not me. It's not mine. I just happen to be an instrument, and this is the way the Lord is using me.
What do you think about people? There's this pretty strong. I don't know if you're on social media very often, but there's this pretty strong movement I feel on Instagram of, especially in the fitness and health space, of people hating, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. So like someone will be like, "Hey man, sugar is really bad. It fogs your brain. You should avoid added sugar at all costs." And they'll give this whole talk on sugar, and whether everything they said is 100% true, the spirit of what they said is true, and it's valuable information, I think, to the vast majority of people because they're obese, right? And they do have brain fog, and they do. And then someone else will come on and be like, and they'll show the person's clip, like, they're a fucking idiot. Sugar's a vital part of brain function. You have to have this. And it's like this big old jack dude, and he's just fucking ripping this other person apart. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What do you think about? Do you think that that's? Do you think that's good discourse to have? Do you think that someone like those people, you know, it's two people with 500,000 followers, that maybe one of them on the back end should be like, should DM the guy on the back end and be like, "Hey, dude, I think you're misrepresenting sugar." Or do you like this? What do you think about this type of bickering? There's a guy in particular, I'm trying to remember his name. He's made his whole account off ridiculing other people. Oh, yeah. Bio Lane or something. Mm-hmm. I maybe I'm saying his name wrong. And there's another guy from England, James Smith or something. There's these, and I saw recently the really strong girl. She was on my show. Who is that girl? She has 25 world records for being strong. She's into boxing now. Steph Cohen. I see she does that sometimes. It's like this. It's not playful. It's not playful. It's like they're bashing these other people who are in the space when we're all kind of, I hope, going for, like, in my mind, we're all kind of going for the same thing.
Yeah.
But do you have any thoughts on that?
Well,
do you do that? Do you do that? Do you bash people? I didn't see you bash.
I don't have time to bash people. That's the other thing. Yeah. I'm curious about these people. I'm like, I'm so busy trying to say what I want to say and relate my message that if someone says something contrary, I don't really care, unless I don't care. I really don't care. I'm just trying to do the best that I can with it. Like yourself, I was a bit naive in thinking that we're all in the same boat. That was basically my general attitude. And a part of my downfall was when I became very popular, I didn't realize, being on the top of the hill means everybody's going to take a stab at you. Right. So there were a lot of videos that started coming out where people were just tearing me apart. And I didn't know how to handle it. So I saw that others would respond, right? Like they were doing it to other people, and people would make videos in response. It wasn't my nature to do this, but I was like, well, I guess I owe a response. I got to say something. And it was the worst decision I ever made. It was the stupidest thing. It's like, why am I getting into this banter with this person? It didn't make me look any better. It just made me look like a fool for engaging with someone who's trying to patronize. They're trying to antagonize me. This guy was trying to get my response. I gave him exactly what he wanted by responding. Right. And so that was a big lesson for me to learn. And I'm at the point right now where, there are so many videos that people make about me, denigrating me, making me look certain ways. And I just ignore. I'm too busy. I don't engage. In fact, I don't even care. Sometimes I watch them and they're actually pretty good. I laugh. I couldn't laugh at myself in the past because my ego was too big. But now I watch the videos. I'm like, that's pretty good. That's actually pretty funny. But I made it one of my do not do's. I do not respond to haters. I don't respond to people that make videos that denigrate me. I just let them be. And it's one of the things that St. John Chrysostom speaks of in terms of following the will of the Lord, which is, if someone says something about you, do not feel the need to defend yourself. I don't need to defend myself. The truth, they've said, is like a lion. It doesn't need to defend it. You don't need to defend it. It will defend itself. If what I'm saying is true and sincere, then it will defend itself. There's no need for me to use my will to overcome.
Yeah. And maybe it is just that I'm naive. It just hurt. I get it. They want to make content and they're inspired by other people. They're inspired by what they're hearing, But sometimes it's just so fucking mean. Do you watch TV? Any TV? Like, do you watch any series? Like, did you watch Yellowstone?
No.
Oh, well, it's this show, and it's been on for 4 seasons, and it's got Kevin Costner in it. And I don't know what's happening to me as I get older. Do you remember, like, when I was older, people would be like, "How can you watch the older?" When I was younger, older people would be like, "How can you watch that? There's so much killing and violence." And I'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But man, I watched this last 4th season of this show, Yellowstone. I don't watch a lot of TV, like hardly at all. But it got too mean.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just getting soft. I just couldn't handle it. Like, the characters are too mean to each other.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I can't watch anything that's of that ilk either.
You have a camp that like dudes go to. Is it called grounding camp?
Yeah, I ran that between 2015 and 2020, and then after the pandemic, I stopped.
You did.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you stop?
Well, first of all, because I couldn't, right? Because everything was closed down, and so it was just I had to take time off, and I also started doing more online training. And as my online business grew, it was more profitable than doing the events. And because we started homeschooling our children, I really wanted to stay home with the kids more. So this traveling around the country or traveling, we're going to Europe and stuff for days at a time, I just realized is unresourceful for the life I really want to live. I'd rather be settled, and if people want to see me, they come to me. And so part of the reason why I bought this property is because at some point I'd like to start holding events here, but it's a matter of I'm not going to go and do it like I used to. So, a combination of business went online, and it was my best year ever. I stopped doing events and I started doing online events, and that was my most profitable year ever. And then, moving here and having a different lifestyle.
Are you still doing online events?
I do an online coaching program, and it's called King Transformation, and it's all about making men strong again. In fact, if anybody wants to learn about it, you can just go to makemenstrongagain.com and watch a masterclass that I just created that really goes deep into a lot of what we've been talking about, particularly as it relates to the subversion of Western culture by Marxism. There's no question about it. I go into the history of it and how the destruction and degradation of masculinity is not by accident. It is a purposeful plan in order to destroy us, beginning with the family.
Tell me the name of the website again.
makemenstrongagain.com.
Make men strong again. I'm so sorry that I can't pull it up on the website. I feel like a fucking buffoon for that. Let me see. Is that it right there? makemenstrongagain.com.
Mm-hmm. And I literally just launched it. So if there are any glitches in it, let me know.
You don't think that this is so you're saying it's on purpose. My thought is that it's not on purpose, that it's a sickness mindset. There's like imagine us as just like there's a swarm of this mindset that's just like there's a mindset that's a sickness, but that it's not necessarily on purpose, that it's not a sentient being or someone at the top controlling it. You think that, but I don't know if in the end, if it matters, if it was on purpose or not. Either way, we both agree it's fucked up and it's fucking destroying humanity. It has to be stopped. But what makes you think that it's on purpose?
Well, first, I do agree with you. There is a natural propensity towards effeminacy and decadence, effeminacy in men and decadence in a culture when men become effeminate. And we've seen it through the fall of every empire. It's cyclical. It begins in the garden, right? Adam had all he needed. He was the alpha male of the jungle. And what happens? As is in our culture and all cultures, he follows his wife. His woman, who is susceptible to more temptation, because it's just our nature. This is not about being sexist. The serpent comes to her and seduces her, and he listens to his wife, and he follows. And like our men today, who put the puss on the pedestal, follow women. We follow women, just like Adam followed his wife, and that's always the downfall. That effeminate nature within a man and the subversive nature of the female still is present within us as a part of our fallen nature. So you're right, it will always be there. It's always been there, it will always be there. It's just be our pattern. But just because a nature exists within something doesn't mean that it's going to manifest itself, particularly at the rate at which it has since 1917. And so what we have is a combination of, there's a momentum in a particular direction, but then there's also an impetus to drive it in that direction as quickly as possible. And this is what the Marxist indoctrination has done. This is what the ideological subversion has done to our culture, has taken what is innate in our most fallen nature, which is usually held back by the boundaries and bounds of religion, and then facilitated, like they throw gasoline on the fire, and that's what's got us to where we are right now. So it's a combination of both. Now, all you really need to do, there's a lot of research done, and if you watch my masterclass, I give you all the resources. But it is very old. But if you just begin at 1917, the world really took a huge shift in the direction of Marxism, communism, global totalitarianism through the Bolshevik Revolution. And the Bolsheviks were successful in Russia and in Eastern Europe to a degree through sheer force. They were tyrannical. They used violence. It was bombs and bullets and war. They knew that if they were going to succeed in the West, that they couldn't win with bombs and bullets. They couldn't win through force. Antonio Gramsci and Mark Lukács, the two founders of cultural Marxism, realized that it had to be a cultural war. So it was the cultural battleground where they were going to essentially subvert anything of high value in the West, which began with two things, which is really one. It's the subversion of the father. Gramsci knew that he needed to de-Christianize the West, and they needed to remove the father from the home. And so you can really point back to that, the evolution of their demise, their plots in 1917 to where we are right now, where we're basically atheistic and broken in the family. No fathers. It's all about destroying God the Father and fathers in the homes. This is what feminism hath wrought. A lot of people take some of these things for granted, but I was talking to somebody the other day about why allowing women to vote was such a strike to the family, and how it has led to the downfall of our society. I mean, if women couldn't vote, Joe Biden wouldn't be where he is right now anyway. But the point was that the communists understood that if they allow women to vote, they can destroy the family by subverting the values. In other words, before women were allowed to vote, there was one vote. And so the whole family, particularly the husband and the wife, had to have the same values. But because they separated the woman from the man in their values in the home, they empowered, quote unquote, empowered women to be able to vote, but at the same time, disempowered the family from being a unified whole. The one thing I can't understand is the craziest thing is a family where the husband and the wife vote differently. They essentially canceled the masculine vote. They canceled the male vote. That was their plan anyway. If you really read the work and the writings of these, the feminists and the Marxists, they wanted to cancel the male vote. Why? Because they knew that women would be more susceptible to egalitarianism. And the only way they were going to push communism was if they went through the woman.
I want to look that. I thought egalitarianism meant that accessible to everyone. Is that what?
Not in the way that, okay, so it's more a matter of equal, what do they call it? Equity. It's not even equality anymore. Equality is one thing.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
Right. So these terms, one of the things the left loves to do is to weaponize terms and words. They'll use words that mean one thing, but they'll give it a brand new meaning.
What you are saying is so fucking offensive to some people.
Yeah, that's how deep the indoctrination is. The basic things that we've understood traditionally for eons are now offensive, right? Like a man is a man. That's offensive. That's how dumb it is. A man is a man. You can't say that. That's offensive. But that's the peak. That's how far it's come. It started with this idea. I mean, most women, if you study the history of feminism, didn't want to separate the vote from their husbands. They were not interested in that at all. It was a big marketing campaign. And the only way that they were going to get women behind that was to build up this narrative that marriage is slavery and that a woman who's a wife is somehow a slave to her husband. And so all this, now you got a bunch of angry feminists that really believe that men innately want to oppress them, which is not the case at all. It's a lie, but it's a part of the subversion tactics that were used to destroy the family, to destroy the culture.
Matt, thank you. This guy's fucking amazing, isn't he? Fucking crazy.
Glory be to the Lord.
Darren, next time give me $300, not $1.99. Take that shit out of here. No, I'm just joking. Thanks, brother. You're a good dude. You're so convincing. You're so good. I'd like to see you walk onto a campus at UC Berkeley and explain that it should be one vote. Oh my God. I can't wait to talk to I hang out with my mom every day. I'm so fortunate to have my mom and dad in my raising of my kids' life. It's
cool.
It's brilliant. Yesterday, you'll like this. This is totally off subject. My kids just move. And actually, you said something in the Mark Bell podcast and the See Me podcast that makes me realize my kids will never go to school and they'll just keep moving. I don't think boys need to be kept fucking busy until they're 35. That's my fucking job until I die, to keep my fucking boys busy and moving and building skills. Guitar to seduce women, jiu-jitsu to protect women, and math and science to be able to speak to the people. And I believe that words are hopefully we can get into this. You talk about the king, the warrior, and I think you call it the wizard or the magician. But I think whoever controls words controls reality for the masses. There's a saying, do you know Lao Tzu, Stephen Mitchell, translation, naming is the origin of all particular things?
Yeah, I was a big fan of the Tao.
Yeah, he's dope. Okay, so yesterday I take my kid to play tennis, and I found this kid. He's the best 15-year-old tennis player in this county, and I got hooked up with him. And he's my kid's jiu-jitsu coach's brother, and he's the sweetest, greatest kid. And when his dad drops him off, I talked to his dad a little bit, and his dad's like, "Yeah, he just got his first cell phone, and he's 15." I'm like, "Yeah, good. I like that. Wait till he's at least 15, right?" And when my kid's out there, he's playing with them for like an hour. My kid just turned 7. And they're playing, and I can tell the 15-year-old's impressed with how good my 7-year-old is, and my pride is swelling. And I go out there and I put a 4-pound weight vest after an hour of playing on my 7-year-old boy. And the 15-year-old's like, "Holy shit, you put a weight vest on him?" I go, "Yeah, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off." He's been playing an hour. Shit's too easy for him.
Wow.
And it's just like, and my son's so proud too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's like, "Yeah, I got
awesome,
this.
man.
I got this." And I just do little bits, if I set the timer, let him play for 5 minutes. It's only a 4-pound weight vest, but he's a 49-pound kid. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's approaching 10% of his weight.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, it's good stuff. Do you ever go backwards? Do you ever, I mean, not you personally, can we, I mean, how do we convince women that they can't vote?
Well,
my goodness.
I like to use my wife as an example. My wife has the greatest life, and she thanks me every day for it. The craziest thing is that women were told and fed the lie that they're somehow free if they work for a boss. They work for a man. They're always going to work for a man in some way, shape, or form. You go work for that man who doesn't love you, hasn't dedicated his life to you, hasn't made children with you, doesn't live under the same roof with you, doesn't spend the night with you, but you have to drop everything and work for this man. And that somehow that's freedom. But if you make your husband a sandwich, somehow you're a slave. Again, once again, it's not about, it's very logical. You tell a woman that it is her right, which it is her right to stay home and raise her children. And her husband is derelict in his duty if he can't provide that for her. That is Catholic tradition. And that's the way the family was for 2,000 years. Is the husband it's his responsibility. Now, here's the thing. That's his That's like his punishment as a man. You will work by the sweat of your brow. Why is it that women want to drop their luxury of being able to stay home and raise their children, which is the most important job on the face of the earth, to go and be a slave like a man, and somehow that's going to make them free?
Crazy.
But the family has been so subverted, and I can't blame women today for too much, because men are so weak that if they can't trust a man, because most men have the mind of their mothers, they're weak men, they're not protectors, they're not providers, they have no authority of their own, they hate authority, so they can't be an authority. So most men are not worthy of submitting to, and I totally understand that. That's why my mission is to make men strong again. But if men were being what we're intended to be, women would be so happy to yield and submit to our authority and to our rule. Patriarchy, the word patriarchy literally means father's rule. But we've been told that that's the enemy. Women have been told that's the enemy. Patriarchy is the enemy. No, patriarchy is what protects women. Patriarchy is what provides for women. Patriarchy is what creates the framework or the space so the woman can be and do the greatest and the heights of what she's been called to do.
There's the I can't agree with you more. It's crazy. I don't know, but it's crazy. You're just saying so much good stuff. It's just nuts. I've never taken it to that practical value. I've always known, especially in my later years, in the last 20 years, that it's super important to be a really strong man. It's really important to know how to fight with your wife. It's really important. If you don't know how to fight with your wife, someone could choose another word, then you're not a real man. There's these couples that like never ever fight, or the man never, you have to know how to roar. You have to know how to let your house has to know that you're in charge. And it's the same way that your kids feel security with your boundaries. Your wife feels security with your boundaries too. What about these? This is going to get into some superficial shit here, but I think it'll be entertaining to talk about. What about these women who instigate problems for their wives? Like, I have a wife who really believes in me. She doesn't create problems for me. If I'm fighting with someone, let's say out in the community, she steers me away from the fight. You know what I mean? She is a calming factor. What about these women who provoke their man? Like, I'll give you an example. I was at a party one time in Washington, D.C., and this dude was hitting on me, and he was really drunk, like blackout fucking drunk. And, there's a lot of gay dudes in D.C., and I didn't give a fuck. Like, so he's hitting on me. What do I care? So, but he was getting overboard, so I left. I went somewhere else, and I went to where I was with one of my friends, and this dude started hitting on my friend, and the dude's wife is like, "You gonna let that motherfucker hit on you?" And I'm just like, whoa. And it almost broke out into a fight. And I'm like, I don't want my wife trying to get me in a fight. So I want her like talking sense into me. Do you know what I mean? Like, hey, let's go somewhere else. Or like,
right.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I can only imagine that, men are utilitarian. We've always been, and that's a part of our gift, is to be utilitarian.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Like a Swiss Army knife?
Yeah, we get shit done.
Yeah. Okay.
We're the ones that get things done. I mean,
okay.
You look outside in society, as much as feminists may rail about how men are useless, there's nothing out there that's been created by women. Who created all the buildings? Who created all the roads? Who created all the cars? Who created all the technology? It's all men. Men are utilitarian. We're the ones that create. Women are much more creative in the fact that they can bring life into the world.
Right.
So knowing that men are utilitarian, but in a disordered world, a woman uses the power that, first of all, my mom says this, and I understand what she's saying. To a degree, it's right. But when we live in a disordered world, it goes all awry. A man is the head of the family, but the woman is his neck. And I understand that. Man is the head of the family. He's going to lead. He's going to go head first. But it's the woman who based on her needs, he's going to pivot. Knowing that it's sort of an innate thing. It's sort of a primal thing.
She's going to have a kid. The man's going to build the house to protect the kid.
Right.
She's going to have another kid. He's going to get another chicken to feed that kid.
That's right.
Okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to understand. Go on.
Mm-hmm. That in situations like the one you just described, the man then becomes the cat's paw. In other words, a means by which she gets evil done in the world. If you remember in the Old Testament, There's a story of Ahab, King Ahab, and Jezebel. And this is where we get this term Jezebel, which are, feminist type women. Jezebel was an evil woman. Ahab was, he was the king of Israel. Jezebel was an evil woman that I think she was from another tribe. And she comes in and ends up creating havoc throughout the whole kingdom by using her husband, the king, to do a lot of bad things, like kill all the prophets, and to, she wanted to have certain things, and she caused her husband to kill men to get the things that she wanted. Even if you look at how John the Baptist died, it was because the king's daughter, I think it was his daughter or his wife, or both of them, his daughter and his wife, they didn't like the fact that John the Baptist was talking bad against divorce. And of course, women love divorce. The divorce laws are designed for women. So when the king was to promise, he said he would promise something to the woman. She wanted John the Baptist's head. So this is a cat's paw. This is where women take advantage of the fact that men want to provide and protect them, but then through diabolical means, they get them to do really bad things.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, she's a Jezebel, the woman that you described. That's what you would call as a Jezebel.
It goes both ways. I think when you're in a relationship with someone, whether you're the man or the woman, when you want someone, at least one person, to be holding the space. So if my wife's angry at someone, I don't even if she's right, I don't fuel that fire. I don't nurture her hate or anger. Right. I listen to it. I'm open to it. But I don't feed it. No one wants to be hateful or angry or spewing venom. It's fucking it's
right.
not.
And if you really love your husband, you really love your wife, your number one goal is to help them get to heaven. You want that person to be holy. You want them to be in a state of grace. If I'm egging my wife on to do diabolical things, I'm derelict in my duty as a husband. I remember recently there was a story of one of these guys in the red pill manosphere, Jack Murphy. They've been like really tearing him down lately because he has had his wife cuckold. He's been cuckold, but he likes it. He gets his wife to have sex with other men for his entertainment. I'm like, that there could be nothing more diabolical than getting your rocks off by encouraging your wife to be a prostitute. This is, you're right. I'm just saying it goes both ways.
Who's Jack Murphy? Who is that?
You got to look him up. I don't know him too much, but it was like big news in the realm of men, men issues. He's like I don't know. He writes books and he goes on news shows and stuff like that.
How about that CNN dude who got caught jerking off? Do you remember that?
CNN's whole game is a jerk off. Those people are.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The attorney. Then there was a Zoom call that they were having, and the guy didn't know his camera was on, and he's one of the attorneys on the show who like speaks about political shit. He's back. Who is that guy? Does anyone know his name? Oh my goodness! And he got caught jerking off. Elliott, do you have a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna run to the restroom real quick.
Okay, I will too then.
So far, so good. Yes, I agree. When Obama was elected president, were you like, fuck yeah, we got a brother in there, a black dude?
His first term. Yeah. I mean, I'm obliged to. But then after I saw the way he was behaving and the things he was doing, and I smelt a fish, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was like, there's something not right about this. I don't like the direction things are going in. And then it was, when he was up for re-election and I started for the first time paying attention to politics and hearing Ron Paul speak, I was like, okay, now I get it, why I sensed that there was something wrong here. It is wrong.
It's crazy because I would be ecstatic. Both my parents are Armenian. I would be ecstatic if an Armenian was president too. But man, it's a double-edged sword because I was so excited about Obama. I thought he was cool as shit. And now I'm just like, holy crap, he really shit the bed.
Crazy. And it's the media, because the media has been spurted. I watched a video the other day about all of the medals that he won, peace medals. But I also, in that same video, they mentioned that under when he was president, I think it was something like 500 people around the world died at the hands of American bombs. He was just dropping bombs left and right all throughout, you know, the Middle East, Northern Africa. We were in more wars than ever before, all undeclared. Between him and Biden, they're probably the worst presidents that have ever graced the White House in America.
Yeah, Biden's a real mess.
Well, he's the cat's paw for Obama. You know who's pulling his strings.
You really think so?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Actually, go ahead.
He even says it. Obama he even said it. There's an interview you can find online where he says once he had to leave the Oval Office, he said something to the effect of, what I really need now is somebody who can be my front man and I can work somewhere in a basement and continue to pull his strings. I mean, he's got his vice president up there now. Biden's totally a puppet for Obama.
Holy shit. And do you think Obama's a puppet for someone else?
Well, he's a Marxist. So, I mean, he's working for the Democratic Socialist Party of America. And their ultimate plan is to take down America, because America is the biggest obstacle to globalism. So to say that he works for the New World Order is not an understatement. To say that he works for global totalitarianism is not an understatement.
What would be wrong with globalism? What would be wrong with, let's say, what would be wrong if the entire every piece of land on this planet, let's say, were the United States, and we all voted for one president, and we all had.
The problem is who's in charge and why.
Right.
And so when you really dig deep, a little deeper, there's a whole lot of diabolical reasons why there's a certain group of people that want to be in charge. If you look into the World Economic Forum, it is it is 100% that. It's economic. The same way that, in other words, when there's globalism, there's McDonaldization of the entire planet. It's all about standardizing everything. And when you standardize the world by eliminating borders, you, among many things, destroy the beautiful diversity. These people are the first ones to talk about diversity, but they hate diversity.
Right.
Because with diversity, they have to diversify their marketing to sell more of their products. It's all economics. A big part of it's economics. So what they need is for all human beings to be of one ideology, one world religion, one world government, one brainwashing system,
one money
of media, one ideology. And when you get the whole world flattened out that way, you basically have global communism. Everybody is flat. Now it's very easy to unroll things like a global pandemic, everybody needs to take this vaccine, so the whole idea is to get the whole world marching at the beat of corporations. It's not even like these are. I am not against authoritarianism. I'm not against a righteous ruler. Kingdoms were beautiful if you had a righteous king. Of course, sometimes you get bad kings. We don't have that. What we have is essentially what was the word, commercialized corporate. It's corporate totalitarianism. It's these companies. It's big tech. It's the pharmaceutical companies. These are the companies. These are the people that want to rule the world so they can sell more of their products and keep us more as corporate slaves. It's a giant corporate slave plantation that they want to create.
And basically, I think of it as a prison too. When I hear the terms diversity, equity, inclusivity, do you know where there is the perfect example of diversity, equity, and inclusivity is every prison. Amazing. They have equity there, they have inclusivity there, and they have diversity there. It is a fucking prison. Go to San Quentin. That's where it is. As I asked you the question, I realized that also the biggest problem in this country is all the places where there isn't healthy competition. So in search engines, the reason why our search engine is so fucked up is because there's no healthy competition for Google. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the story of when the railroads were being built from New York to California and California to New York. It was two companies that were was it two companies or was it the government doing it? But basically, for financial reasons, they purposely missed each other. So they were building from either ends of the country, and they purposely missed each other. And it's that kind of fuckery that's going on. It is. Oh, yeah. Why? I don't understand how everyone doesn't see what happened, let's say, with the Black Lives Matter movement and the defund the police, all the hatred towards the police, and that only the people who suffered were the people that were supposed to be protected the most. Murder rates, not in my neighborhood, not in your neighborhood,
Right.
obviously, but in the bad neighborhoods where the problem was, skyrocketed. Crime is skyrocketing. Cities are falling apart. How do people like Obama not see that? Does he not care, you think?
Oh, he sees that. That's his plan, because all he's doing is it's weaponizing us against each other. So, for lack of a better way to describe it, that's weaponizing Black people.
Yeah, for
Now
sure.
they're more angry, more vitriol, more entitled, right? It's like nobody stopped them from doing all the things they were doing. So now that sense of entitlement is just, so once this powder keg explodes, they've basically weaponized those people to go out and do whatever they feel like in any manner they want, without any sense of moral repercussion or law.
Yeah, and you're seeing the videos more and more of that. You're seeing these videos of people just walking into a Walgreens with a garbage bag. I just saw one the other day. Go behind the counter and just take whatever they want. And it's like,
yeah, the plan was to create that, because at the core, I always refer back to 1917. The plan from the beginning is to destroy the West. They've done a great job in Europe. They're not complete, but they're getting there. And America is sliding real quick. That way they can have global totalitarianism.
How do you think this ends? Or what do you think the next chapter looks like for our kids?
It may get worse before it gets better. I was listening to a pastor talk the other day about how we need to prepare our children for martyrdom. If history is any lesson, he's probably right. Severe persecution will come raining down on us. For America, it's going to be they cannot establish their total demise until they de-weaponize us, until we have the Second Amendment. And our founders, it was probably the most brilliant thing that they did. They weaponized words and they destroyed the First Amendment through their censorship. But the American people are the largest standing armed army on the face of the planet. There's something like 7 weapons. There's 7 guns for every 1 American. We are armed to the teeth. And so the only way that we're going down, that in other words, we've lost if we are forced and we comply with giving all our weapons back. But when it comes to a head, it will ultimately be guerrilla warfare on American soil, with America versus UN troops and Chinese soldiers on our land.
Damn.
That's my imagination, what it says.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be fighting just like they did in the Balkans. They've essentially balkanized us. That's what the whole race war is about anyway. And so ultimately, I would imagine that America is just going to be like a pie that's going to be cut up and sliced, and they're going to be different, like Chinese controlled, and they're going to be those that are still patriot controlled. The cities are going to be trashed. But this is our chastisement. This is first of all, it's history. It's always happened. It's always going to happen, just like you mentioned before. But it's also it's God's justice. It's His justice on us for, among many things, the 70 million plus babies that were slaughtered in the womb for pornography and birth control, and all the things that we've just taken for granted as woke. Is an affront to our Creator, and He has to, as He did with the flood during the times of Noah, clean house. And so ultimately, God wins.
When you said balkanized, what does that mean?
Neighbor against neighbor, and so
that's what
fractured. The whole country fractured, and in a way, we're beginning to balkanize. Just look at the difference between a state like Florida and Texas, and California and New York.
Yeah.
I live in Florida right now. We have the highest migration ever. I mean, people are coming here by droves, and it's the first time in Florida history that Republicans outnumber Democrats.
It is the first time? I thought Florida was a Republican state. No,
registered voters. So we've always been a swing state, but there have always been more registered Democrats. Now we have more registered Republicans. So you see that there's this. It's in a way a balkanization. It's a splitting. And so you're going to have the, the shithole cities like San Francisco and New York that are going to be, more of what the woke people want. And then you're going to have states like Florida and Texas. They're trying to destroy us by busing and shipping in illegal immigrants. But ultimately, if you got guys like DeSantis who stand up against it and speak out against it and is willing to bite the bullet, and I think more and more governors are going to rise up that way, because it's showing that American people want that. That's why they're all coming here. As much as the media spoke shit about Florida and how crazy our governor is, everyone's coming here and they want to be here.
Yeah.
So
there, Tennessee, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, man, people are.
Yeah, all the southern states too. Alabama, Mississippi, they're banning abortion and all that stuff. People with true values, traditional values, are going to make a comeback, and it's these states that maintain them that I say, of course, my bias, but I think I'm right. The good people are going to want to be in, and all the retards are going to be, go ahead, stay up in the Northeast and in California.
It's a shame. I'm in California. It's so darn beautiful here. When you see people like I saw recently Trevor Noah, who I think is a vile man who spread really, really bad shit. Do you know who that is, Trevor Noah?
He does like the talk show, the night show, right?
Yeah, I think he replaced Jon Stewart. It's on Comedy Central, and he's just been spreading bad shit for the last couple of years. I heard him say the other day, we would not be in this mess if Trump was president. And I was like, holy shit, this motherfucker's coming around. And we saw Joe Rogan come around. We saw Russell Brand come around. We're seeing Bill Maher come around. We're saying are you familiar with Project Veritas, the guy James O'Keefe? We're seeing the stuff he's doing. Do you think that there's any chance that this whole thing just, we get a new president in and this whole thing just goes away in the next 4 years?
I'm starting to think that presidents don't matter nearly as much as governors, because as much as the president wanted to, first of all, it was great that Trump was president because he exposed the fact that it's the governors that are in charge. So it was great that I believe the fact that Trump was president allowed guys like DeSantis to stand up. The fact that he said, I'm not shutting down the country, I'm going to let the states decide, showed us who really is most important for us based on the Constitution if someone's following it. So local government is going to make a comeback, right? Who are your senators, or who are the representatives of your counties, your mayors? That's where we're really seeing the rubber meets the road.
Do you ever get scared
of what?
I don't know, just these thoughts.
No, I'm not scared. First of all, I thank God every day for the graces that he's given me to live in Florida. I mean, just that alone. And I have family members that live up in New York, and their life, they lost their jobs and things went really bad. So I can't help but to look back at my life and see the hand of God always, for some reason, and I don't deserve it, giving me good things. And so I believe in that. I believe it will continue, but I also know that if chastisement comes, it is merely for my purification. If anything hard befalls me, I know that it is for my own good, so I don't resist it.
Did you ever think about starting your own congregation? Can you do that? Do Catholics
I have no interest.
Do that? No interest.
No, but if I could leave people home to roam, I would.
If you could say that again?
If I could leave people home to roam. The Catholic faith built the West. Western civilization was built on Christendom. All of our values are, and even, we take it for granted that charities and universities and all these things are Western, and just kind of were secular and they were there, but the Catholic Church built all that.
Do you know who the Flowing Dutchman is?
I remember hearing about it, but I don't remember right now.
So I came across him on Instagram. He's a guy, he swings a mace.
Oh, okay.
And from his and he's doing great. You know what I mean? He's built a master's course and he's awesome. Anyway, that's how I found you, because he was quoting some of your stuff and talking about how you changed his life. He's in the Netherlands and he travels all over India just swinging the mace and stuff.
That's cool. I got to check him out. The Flowing Dutchman.
Yeah, the Flowing Dutchman. Yeah.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Elliott, how would you define what is an alpha male?
Well, we've been speaking a lot about it before, right? Like a man with boundaries, right? But a man who has boundaries has to know what his boundaries are first. A man with values, a man who's not willing to compromise his values or compromise his boundaries. But most of all, it's a man with authority. And the only way a man has authority is if he knows how to submit to authority. Part of the reason why we have so many weak men is because they eschew authority.
Wow. Wow. An alpha male is a man with values, a man with boundaries, a man with authority, but who also knows how to submit to authority. It's very interesting. One of the things that I realized is that I'm really good at choosing my leader.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's men, I've cultivated that. I know who good leaders are and I choose them. And some people think that that's a subversive thing to do, but it's actually not. It makes me really fucking strong because I choose my leader.
Mm-hmm. Very strong. One of the most alpha male things that a man can do is devote himself to something outside of himself.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The most effeminate thing that we do is self-devotion. And this is what the whole world teaches us. My life, I'm in control. I'm the authority. But when a man can place that focus, center of focus outside of himself, like you just said, that requires a lot of strength. The problem is that most people, their center of their focus is on themselves. But as a result, they're always looking at themselves. So they're more easily manipulated by the media and by false authorities. When you're operating off of fear, you're more subject to false authority.
Can people learn all this stuff? What do you teach in this Make Men Strong again at makemenstrongagain.com? Will they hear stuff? This is it.
This is it. One of the things I learned when I hit rock bottom was that there's a critical thing that's missing, a critical part of the puzzle for all of society, which has been the elimination of masculine initiation. Women have a certain grace from God. Women live more by their nature. Men live more by a purpose. The problem is that purpose needs to be taught and mirrored. A woman's nature is her nature, and she's going to generally live by that, and it's okay. It's good. She should. But a man doesn't have that same instinct that a woman has. And that's why I often say that God gives women certain graces that he doesn't give to men. Men have to learn it. And to learn it, we need to be taught it. And the only way we were taught it was by older men. And older men would teach the men the way men learn, which is through experience and through austerity and through challenge and through meaning given to them, not this objective, lukewarm, gray, you believe whatever you want. It was important for men to have a very direct and clear and subjective mythology, religion, sense of meaning, so that they could be of value to the society that they would be brought back into after being initiated.
Am I the only one stunned by some of the things said in here? Not in a good way. I am not a feminist at all. First time in history of this podcast, or am I missing something? I totally hear what you're saying, Melissa. Do you hear what she's saying, Elliott?
Yeah. I understand why she would say that way, because she was raised in a culture that subverted the genders. And one of the first ways they started subverting us was by making boys and girls go to school together. Prior to the 1950s, boys and girls went to different schools because we think differently, we behave differently, we have different values, and that's just normal and it's just natural. But what the bringing together of the boys and girls in school have done is to give girls a male education and to teach them to think and be ambitious like boys, and for boys to think and to feel and behave more like girls. So we totally live in a disoriented time where both genders are swapped, and you don't have to believe it by coming from me. You just look at what happened to the family. Families don't work again. In some cities, there's 60% divorce rates. Broken homes is the norm. Since the 1950s, the amount of children born to single mothers has gone up exponentially. So I'm saying things that sound crazy because we've been so brainwashed, but all you have to do is look at the fruits of it.
Do you have? I'm with you. I'm with you. Do you ever feel like, oh shit, I just know too much. I went too far fucking down this road.
No, this is my path. This is my mission. This is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm willing to die on this hill. Meaning, like, if I get hate or confusion, it's God prepared me for this. This
Right.
is what I'm supposed to do. I can't. I owe it to humanity. I owe it to my country. I owe it to my culture, and I owe it to God because I was raised in a well-ordered family. I have a strong father. I have a good mother. And God blessed me with the same. I didn't know what I was doing when I married my wife. I was a beta male like most of us. Only by the grace of God that I come from a strong family and I'm raising a strong family. And as was revealed to us in a revelation from God through Mother Mary in 1917, right about the time of the Bolshevik Revolution, the final war, the final battle, right? She predicted that there would be 2 world wars. She said, but the final battle will be for the family. She says, when the family is under attack, you know that we're at the end. And she said that anybody who works for the sanctity of the family will be chastised and will be, attacked. And so that I'll be a martyr for that, because it is the key to our destruction and to our rising up out of this mess.
Look at this. This is from the Flowing Dutchman. By the way, I've started taking your master's class. Thank you very much. Elliott's advice got me out of my darkest hours and showed me a way out by becoming a stronger version of myself. You're the man, Elliott. Thank you.
That's awesome. Nice to meet you.
Crazy. Fantastic guest, by the way. Great guy. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's easy. You make yourself a big target by some of the things you say. It's a lot, and unfortunately, a lot of people, to go back to what Lao Tzu said, a lot of people you're pointing at the moon, and people are going to stare at your hand. They're going to miss what you're saying because they're so distracted by your finger. When all they have to do is look up at the sky and be like, "Holy shit, he's pointing at something." And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that he's going to say things that's going to turn on an automatic response in your head because you already have a pre-planned unconscious response to some of these things. And you have to let that go to kind of get to that next, I don't know, evolution of thought.
Yeah.
Well, you say you met your wife and you were beta. How did she handle your transformation?
She handled it very well. I tell the story in my masterclass that we were kids. We didn't know what we were doing. We enjoyed each other's companies. We're very compatible. We love each other. But when I quote unquote hit rock bottom, I was going the wrong way, and I wasn't being the husband that I knew I could be for her and that she knew I could be. I was failing. I was becoming too emotional. I was becoming very effeminate. And it's amazing, at the height, her father was dying, and I had a dream one night. And in my dream, I received the message that the voice said, "Elliott, you and Guy," which is her father, "are about to make Colleen's life very miserable." I was like, whoa, me and her father are going to make her life very miserable. The 2 most important men in her life. The next day, I kid you not, her father died, and the wake-up call came to me. And for a year, all I could do, it was like a mantra in my head, not given by me, but some other force: Father, Father, Father. And so with that, I turned around and dedicated myself to being the best father and husband that I could be. And when she saw that, she was elated. She didn't even know what that would look like. She had no idea what it would look like. But my wife follows my lead, and I'm usually, of course, I have her best interest in mind. And so every step of the way, she was there behind me, cheering me on, and wanting more of what I was growing into. I needed that moment, and I needed a woman like her that knew that that was the strongest me coming out. especially because I have 3 daughters. And it became around the time that my oldest daughter was becoming a teenager and starting to fall into some things that were unacceptable to us. And I couldn't have continued to be the weak man that I was being and be there for my daughters.
What does your mom think about where you're at in your
You're
life?
just like your father.
Is she proud of you?
She's not surprised at all. Yeah, both of my parents, they're proud of me. It's just funny that, as the older I get, the more I sound like my dad. So I think that was just like latent. It was a ticking time bomb just waiting to go off in my soul, that finally my dad is the most alpha male I know. And now I get that. I used to hate him as a result, but it took all this for that latent sense within me, his DNA or whatever it is, to finally pop up. And it's like, wow, my dad's very entertaining to listen to. There's a video of he and I speaking, or he's doing most of the speaking. If you just look up Elliott Hulse on YouTube, I get to, in a lot of ways, be the mouthpiece that my dad never was. My dad's a preacher, and everywhere he goes, not literally a preacher, he fixes cars, but like he does what I do. He has contrary thoughts about things, and he's very opinionated, and he speaks his mind. So he did it to us as kids growing up, and he does it wherever he works. You could be mesmerized by him when he starts talking. And I, being his son, his essence, I get broadcast on YouTube, basically spitting his own wisdom, in the way that I know, because I'm an educated. My dad's not educated; he just knows this stuff. I'm educated, so I could speak about history and I could speak about statistics. But I get to be my dad. I get to carry my dad's lineage on and be a father figure. My dad was a father that all the young men from the 1970s and 80s needed. And now I get to be that for millions of men worldwide through YouTube.
Yeah, crazy. What are you into right now? Is there anything that you're reading right now?
It's all catechesis. I'm learning the faith. I'm learning Catholic faith. Like I said, I grew up Catholic, but then I fell away from the faith, bounced from religion to religion, spent a lot of time in the New Age. And now that my children are getting older and I'm getting older and death is a reality, not that I'm getting close to it, but it could happen at any moment. All of my time beyond work is dedicated to learning the faith, practicing the faith, and teaching the faith to my children.
Awesome. Elliott, thanks, dude.
I had a lot of fun here, Sevan. It was a great talk. I don't think I've ever spoken for 2.5 hours with someone, but it was easy with you.
The truth is, I don't know what's happened. I don't know if you made me so high, but I'm starting to vibrate a little bit. I haven't eaten in like 40 hours, and I'm feeling cold. And I'm like, either this guy's sending me like through the fucking roof, or I'm freezing to death here in my office. I even leaned over and pulled my little portable heater next to me. I'd love to do it again sometime, man. You are a marvelous man. If there's anything I can ever do for you, if you ever want to just shoot the shit again, if you're like, I mean, wow, you are a gift to humanity. You're very eloquent. You're very thought out. There's nothing, and anyone can follow you through the steps. It's a lot, but you had wrong. Every time you spoke, you gave me a ladder to climb up to where you were speaking from, or climb down to where you were speaking from. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a good time.
Mayor Pat,
available. Just, hit me up if you want to talk again.
Okay. Beautiful. I'm going to give you I gave you my phone number on the,
I have it.
Okay, email. So feel free to text me at any time. I do not have your phone number. If I need to get in touch with you, I'll either use your email or your DM.
Yeah, definitely email, but I'll send you a text with my number.
Okay, brother. Much love to you. Thank you for sharing.